everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the MinnMax Show, a place about games, friends, and getting better. My name is Ben Hansen, and I'm personally very thankful that you're here. I am not alone, thank God. I'm joined by Leo Vader.
An honor and a pleasure.
That's right. I'm joined by Haley McLean.
Howdy doody.
Could I get an honest to God howdy doody out of you?
No.
Okay, we're joined by Jeff.
Fake one.
I get it. Jeff Markiafava's here.
Howdy doody.
Hey, Jeff from Game to Play, everybody. State of Play, that is. Kelsey Lewin's also here.
Yippee!
Hot damn, we got a good show for you this week, everybody. We are unpacking all of the biggest reveals, the twists, the turns, the surprises, the gasp inducers from Sony's big State of Play. Then we're going to be going to outer space, Jeff. Not quite, but we're going to be talking about UFO 50, the game we promised to talk about last week, and by God, we're going to talk about it this week.
Kept our promise.
That's right. Now, here's the thing as well. Haley McLean, the world should know, is a video game IP lawyer. And Haley, just as we posted the podcast last week, Nintendo and the Pokemon Company decided to lob a lawsuit at our dear friends over at Palworld. And I heard a lot of schmucks and a lot of other podcasts be like, well, I don't know anything about law, but this is what I think's going on. And so I'm waiting for you to bring the thunder as we talk about it later in this episode, because you know what you're talking about. And I'm very excited for you to unpack your brain on that whole thing.
Yeah, I've cared about this since 2018. I've been screaming into the void. This is going to be a big problem. Just nothing's happened yet. And everyone's like, okay.
All right.
Look, it's become
Does the law move too slow? Is it too slow?
It's more like, when will it be monetarily good to do these things? Not so much the law.
Interesting. All right. We'll unpack all that stuff. And then back half of the show, we have a bunch of great questions that people submitted over there on Patreon. This is one of those weeks where it's like, whew, this is good. This is good. We had like, whew, I would say we got like 120 comments. I'd say 80 of them. I was like, ouch, ooh, hot. Such a good question, yowie. So we'll get to all that good stuff in the back half of the show here. But
in the list of email topics, you had us choose ones we wanted to talk about. There was both taco hypothetical and sandwich hypothetical.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get to both of them in this episode. So everybody, if you're hungry, stay tuned. We are not talking about The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom on this episode of the podcast. We have banned it because Nintendo hasn't sent us a code yet. But also, we are going to be doing the deepest dive on The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Last week, we had that poll and said, all right, y'all get to choose. Are we going to do the Silent Hill 2 remake or the new Zelda game? I think our dear friend Michael Huber guessed that it was going to be 58% Zelda. He was pretty damn close. It's 662 votes for Zelda and 563 votes for Silent Hill 2. So we are tackling The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom for the deepest dive, which is going to be a two-part game club discussion. It's going to be the best, most thorough discussion about that game on the internet. We want you all to play along at home if you're interested in it, if you have the means to, and then submit your thoughts over there on Patreon, and then we're going to be reading those in our discussions. The whole Deepest Dive series is going to be on MinnMax's YouTube channel, but then it's also going to be available in MinnMax's bonus podcast feed if you're a $5 supporter. So if you want the podcast version of that huge discussion, you can unlock it there. We'll also be talking about it. Kyle Hilliard and other folks will be talking about it on the main episode for the podcast next week as well. But the Deepest Dive is going to be the big, thorough discussion about this thing. So here's the deal. We're going to be collecting your comments on Patreon. If you're a Patreon supporter at any tier, even that $2 tier, over there on Patreon, we want you to submit your thoughts, and we will be reading your comments during the Deepest Dive. And so by this Sunday, it's a tight deadline. It comes out Friday, but it's going to be a shorter first episode. So this Sunday, we're going to be collecting your comments, and we're going to be talking about everything in the game in the first area up through Zora's Domain. So you have some choices of where you want to go. So first area is kind of the tutorial area, and then choose to go to Zora's Domain. That's going to be the first episode that we're unpacking there in a big way. And then Monday, October 14th is going to be the second episode where we cover everything else in the game. So stay tuned for all that fun stuff. But out of Nintendo land, straight into PlayStation Boulevard, we got the big PlayStation State of Play. I don't know, how you all were feeling. Jeff, I don't know how in particular you were feeling in general, but it's one of those things where you wake up at night and start to realize what PlayStation games are on the horizon. We are due for an update. We got Death Stranding on the beach. We all can't wait to embark on the beach adventure. And then outside of that, it's like Fair Games And so it seemed like this state of play was primed for give us something that we can give us a handhold.
Losing them more than we've been getting PlayStation games these days.
That's true. Yeah. How are you feeling going into this thing, Jeffem?
Same question as you, and boy did they answer it, because there's nothing coming.
How dare you? Were you really pessimistic about watching this thing?
No, I wasn't. And I watched it, and there were a few things that I saw. It felt honestly a lot of like Sony trying to resell us games that we've already bought and played before in the past. That like, part of that is Horizon stuff and remakes of games, which, I'm not going to like, there's one remake that everybody wants and they all would have been super happy if they had showed it. So it's not like remakes necessarily are the problem, but
just Bloodborne.
Like, yeah, 3/4 of the way through, I was they were kind of stacking up for me. And I would have liked to see some more new stuff.
I think like for big headlines, it's like, okay, we got one big new Sony game, which we can unpack here. But in addition to that, it was just kind of like, hey, there is technically a pulse for PSVR 2. Might have been kind of one of the interesting little nuggets. Not from Sony first party. Yeah, but like, hey, we got this game called Midnight Walk that looks like it's made out of clay from the developers of Lost in Random. That looks pretty cool. And then Metro Awakening VR, which we'd already seen, but like that's going to be on the horizon. There were
Hitman update.
Hitman. Yeah, it's like there were little pockets of, hey, PSVR 2. There'll technically be some things for you to play if you bought that thing. It's not going to be the big unveiling of a big Sony first-party VR game. I don't think we're ever going to get that again at this point.
It hit a little strangely because I was like, didn't you kill this already? And if it's so close to being killed and feels basically killed, why would I bother getting excited about this when I know you're going to kill it? Because you love to kill things like this?
Right. But they're not stopping other developers from trying to release stuff for it. It's like, it's not killed, but we're not going to go out of your way to say, don't release this on PSVR 2. If you want to make a new Metro for VR, go ahead.
I mean,
surely the Hitman stuff had you excited, right, Leo?
This is their 4th run at Hitman in VR, so I'm cautiously pessimistic.
Is it really?
Yeah, they did Hitman for PSVR 1, which I think was like, it was a timed exclusive at least a year. So that makes me think that Sony paid for it in some way. And honestly, the way Hitman support has been, it feels like they only come out of the woodwork for a paycheck, really, to be honest. As much as I love that game, it's like with a $5 DLC or with a money move like this, which was again PSVR 1, then it was on PC a year later, then they just recently did Hitman 3 VR for Quest 3,
right,
which was a different game by a different studio, but like ported and with custom VR controls, which is weird how recent that was for them also to be doing this secretly.
Weird.
But this does look different and better and a little more addressing the problems with Hitman VR initially of feeling like you were kind of not placed in the world. You were kind of just gliding around and pressing the interact button on various things. Now it looks like there are custom interactions we saw lock picking and we saw him clicking on the keyboard to destroy security camera footage,
right,
which looks fun. So we'll see. And then we'll see if it comes to PC. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't been excited about Hitman in VR in a while, besides just do stupid stuff for one stream.
Right. God, if they can't get you, Leo, there's no hope maybe. But Kelsey, what was your game of the show for this whole thing?
My boring answer is Monster Hunter.
Hey, hold your head up.
We didn't have well, I just mean it's not like it was new. It was just we have a release date now and more I don't know, more monsters, it looks like. It's kind of they've put out several trailers at this point, so I keep being like, have they shown us this monster yet before?
Right.
Not 100% sure, but I continue to just be insanely excited about that. I'm glad it's coming early in next year rather than, because I think they had just been saying 2025, and when I hear that, I assume they mean second half.
Right.
if it's just a year. So
yeah, so it's February 28th, 2025 is when Monster Hunter Wilds is coming out, but. Yeah, there's like that tease of at the end, there's like a monster with a whip or something. But it was funny, like during a reaction stream, which you can watch on MinnMax's YouTube channel, they were focusing a lot on water. and you were holding your breath, no pun intended, hoping that they were not going to go under that water at any point like they did in the past
I don't
games.
think they are. If they haven't shown it yet, I don't think they're going to. It was bad. They haven't done it in a very long time at this point, but the underwater fights were bad and not fun. And I don't really see how to make them fun because there's nothing fun about like moving slower.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
has there ever been a game that's done that good? I don't think so.
Well, Rayman Legends. My favorite levels in that game are the underwater swimming
Side
levels.
scrollers don't really count because you're not so much. It's just like 3D water fights. I'm with you, Kelsey. Every time water's introduced, I'm like, I would rather do anything else than paddle towards the enemy who's 10 times faster than me and bites me.
Yeah, but this time around, it's not going underwater. It's just like, seems like they're dealing with floods coming in and like changing the water environments, and like if weather is going to be this big thing in this game. I mean, Kelsey, are you having that same thing where I saw this demo for Monster Hunter Wilds at SGF, and I feel like a lunatic being like, no, it really looks awesome. It really looks awesome. I feel like every trailer, it's not coming across, but you got to play it at PAX, right? Did you also have that feeling of like this plays and looks so much better in person than it does in any video?
I guess I don't. I think it looks awesome in a video and in person, but I also think that Monster Hunter is a weird series because like once you're in it, it kind of doesn't matter what they show you. You're excited. That's maybe a little bit of a stretch, but I feel like as long as what they're showing you looks like Monster Hunter, you're like, yes, more of that, more of that. So, I mean, because we've had, since Monster Hunter World, we've gone, kind of quote unquote backwards with the Switch ones, which are, they're not as, they're more like the 3DS ones, like they're not as beautiful and have as many crazy things going on in them, although they continue to just add quality of life stuff. So I don't know. I think I just tend to be excited about whatever they show me for Monster Hunter, and I just it plays like it looks for me. But I do think that this one looks like it's going to be another very good entry point into the series if you haven't done it yet. I would say that like the last 3 Monster Hunters have all been good entry points, but that used to not be the case. So
yeah. Did you have one thing that stood out to you when you actually got to play it?
No, not really, because it was a very fast demo, and I was playing with other people who, like, friends of mine who are also big Monster Hunter people. So we kind of just like dove right in and started killing in the way that we normally do. So I tried a couple of new weapons I hadn't tried before, but I don't think like they're not actually like new to the series. I was just like, I don't know, I've never tried any of the like ranged stuff before. Let me just see how that feels. And I mean, the secret, the little like rideable dinosaur guy feels great. Jumping on and off of that is awesome, but it really, it doesn't feel crazy different. It doesn't even really feel like substantially different at all from other Monster Hunter games, but
that's bold.
Not in a bad way, just this is more of a good thing, and they continue to just tweak it and make it a little bit better every time.
Yep, make it a little easier to get into, the ability to switch to different weapon out in the field and stuff like that, weather effects, changing the environment. It's like, all right, good, sign me up, yeah.
But I played Charge Blade, and I don't think they changed like much of anything about it.
Okay.
At least everything still worked the way I remembered it, and maybe there's some additional, there's some additional button combo things I haven't figured out yet, but it seemed to play pretty similar to what we have been playing.
Yeah. Haley, what was your game of the show, you think?
Oh, the new Ghost game. Ghost of Yotei? Is that how it's pronounced? I never.
Yeah, I guess that's what we say now is the new Ghost game.
The new Ghost game. That doesn't really sound right, does it? But I
from
guess
the
that's
Ghost
what it is.
series. Yeah, this is finally the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima from Sucker Punch. I guess it's been 4 years, so it's the grand reveal of this thing. But that trailer was really, really well done. Like watching it again, it's like they really nailed this tone. But what stood out to you as somebody who loved the last one?
That was my 2020 game of the year. It was such a refreshing open world RPG in that like like we were talking about in our live stream, but just there's so much color in that game, and it doesn't feel like there's a trend sometimes with RPGs for the only way color to come into the world is like through neon or like, oh, an old broken down city with old signs that just happen to have pink in them or something. But this one's like, what if you ran through a field of the brightest red color flowers you've ever seen in your life? And suddenly I'm like, maybe I care about fidelity. Like maybe if you guys showed me colors, I'd care about it a bit more.
Yeah.
Because that game is so pretty. And I just thought like the wind mechanic of leading you places was really natural and like one of the best ways a game has ever just naturally allowed me to flow from one point to another without HUDs and stuff. Like Leo, I know you're a huge nerd for that kind of stuff too. It's just, of course, like that's such a good idea, yet I don't think a game's ever done that before. And plus like Jin Sakai is such a good protagonist and the story in that game's great as well. I did every mission. I platinumed that game. I was like so in love with it when I played it. And I haven't replayed it since. I've been thinking I want to replay it, but now that this is coming out next year, maybe I'll hold off.
Yeah.
You should go back to Sly Cooper, the Sucker Punch classics.
There we go.
We've always been
Oh
killing it
yeah,
on
really
Reddit.
colorful, right?
Yeah.
I mean, are you really still playing Sly 2, Leo?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. I definitely want to talk about that in a future episode. I know Kyle wanted to go back to it too.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, Ghost of Yotei 2025. So this takes place in Hokkaido, like the northern island, and it's 300 years after the last game. So, sorry, everybody. Jin is quite dead unless they froze him in carbonite or something funky there. So 300 years in the future. And, you know, on the PlayStation blog, they talk about like, oh, Hokkaido in this region, I guess it wasn't called Hokkaido at the time, but kind of the northern island. The idea is it's like outside the rule of law of Japan at the time. And so throughout this trailer, a lot coming from the soundtrack, which was so damn cool.
Oh my God, it was so good.
But it's definitely given the vibes of like they're going for kind of a American Western in northern Japan in the early 1600s. It was like, yes.
Like the Wild East.
Ooh, write that down. That's going to be a marketing tagline to them for sure. Yeah, but that's a really cool angle, I think. And even if it's just mainly coming from the soundtrack, like it's going to add such a flavor to this thing.
And I love a little female protagonist. I know sometimes people don't, but I love when I get to play a girl and I'm a girl. Like, cool.
I don't like to call her little. That seems condescending. Jeff and I don't condone the way Haley's
treating women. Because I'm such a little girl. I'm so petite. I really see myself in her.
I see.
I like playing as a big girl personally.
Yeah.
And I want to call it right now that Jin is there's going to be some implication that his spirit is in the wolf we saw in the trailer.
Oh, totally.
Oh, good call, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because what? He was all about foxes. Did he have any connections to wolves in the last game?
No wolves in the last game.
Yeah.
300 years, long time. Get a new favorite animal.
Yeah, no, that is a smart call. I mean, at the very least, I'd imagine they're going to have it's a really good tease for exploration of the world, I think, of like, oh, uncover the legends of, we used to know of this legend on the island of Tsushima called Jin Sakai. He was the greatest warrior. Like, I feel like it's going to be...
You got all of our collectibles.
Right.
He wrote so much poetry. It was
loved
crazy.
it.
Yeah, most productive poet.
So Atsu is the new protagonist in this game. They tease on the site that there's going to be new weapons in there and everything. And she is hunting, but then the big crux of the trailer is, oh no, Atsu, you are being hunted as well. But yeah, it just looks so damn good. Like that herd of horses, that shot alone. Like, I didn't expect a herd of horses.
That made me scream in glee.
It's like, what a weird, I don't know, shot to have to compel you to like, oh, I got to pre-order now. I saw a herd of horses in this new open world game. You got
good
me.
Horse game. It's a very good game built around horses, which I always appreciate, because sometimes they'll add a horse in and you're kind of like, okay, I can ride it. Like Skyrim, horrible horse game. That's just a game that has a horse in it. But like there's other games that are developed like, we want you to ride horses all over the place. And this was one of them. So implementing horses and making it seem way more horsey. I was like, yes, perfect, please.
Yeah.
More.
You don't get much more stylish, or like so many games call themselves cinematic, and this one is just off the charts. Although it was a little funny that it came right after Mark Cerny talking about like the new high fidelity that the PS5 Pro can get you. And they had all these examples, and then they cut to this and it's like black and white, kind of like a filter to make it look like old film, like going by, and it's like, oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, I
Very
can't
impressive.
believe. I mean, it was the boldest play I've ever seen of Sony saying you only get color in this game if you get the PS5 Pro, the base PS5. It can't render the color that you'll need here. But yeah, it looks great. So Ghost of Yotei. There you go, everybody. That's the real game on the horizon that we can all look forward to. That's a PS5
Not the
exclusive.
Horizon Forbidden West remaster.
Boo! Don't give us that thing again. It's
only been 7 years. That's not long enough, and that game looks great. What are we doing?
7 years. I hate to tell you, it is a long time. I agree.
7 years.
This thing does not need to exist, but
This late stage of it just
she's gonna
went
say
from
it?
2K to 4K. That's the only difference.
yeah, it is.
It's not a big leap.
It's so weird because, like, I know, Jeff, we joke. We dunk on Horizon Zero Dawn like it's a 4 foot tall baseball player out there in the NBA. Let me express myself cleanly. But at the same time, like, I did like that game when it came out. I had a good time going through that whole thing. But somehow just Horizon has become this weird punching bag of a franchise. And for this now to be like, hey, that game you liked, it looks better. And everyone's like, F you! Why have you done this to me? What a tragedy.
I mean, me and Janet are like the big proponents of this, and I don't need a remaster for.
Of course.
It made me think, like, didn't they remaster this once already? But it's just like they look so good, and they showed the new footage, and it's like, yeah, that's what I remember it looking like. Like,
Right.
I'm sure if I went back and played it again, it would be like, okay, well, this does pale in comparison to the sequel visually.
It hits different having so few other things to look forward to. It's like, and of course, it's way easier to do this than another big tentpole game. But like, even a small new game would be more exciting.
Yeah, like if it could just happen in a vacuum, snap your fingers and it happens or whatever, fine. But Leo, you mentioned while we were talking this, it's like people are working on this and they're kind of wasting their time. They could be doing something more interesting.
I mean, if it makes you feel any better, it's not like Guerrilla is saying this is our main thing. We're not working on anything new. This is Nixxes, like they does a lot of ports and stuff like that for Sony. So it's Nixxes, everybody. We can spare their. I don't know.
Like, why not port a
thing.
PS1 game or so?
Well,
there's just something that didn't come out in 2017. I think would be better than literally anything else.
It is funny. So I mean, this game you can upgrade from the PS4 to the PS5 version for $10, $9.99 technically. Jeff, you keep that 1 cent in your pocket like a proud little baby boy. But I mean, they saw the numbers. Presumably, Last of Us Part 1 sold well enough where they said, okay, there's a market for kind of remastering these PS4, Last of Us Part 1 is confusing, but PS4 games and bringing them back up to this generation. Like, that game sold well. Obviously, it has the boost of the show behind that one. But for this one, it's going to be funky because this is coming out on Halloween this year, the new version of Horizon Zero Dawn. And then I don't think they had a date yet. No, they do. So then on November 14th, they have the Lego version of Horizon, which is a retelling of this story as well. So like within a 2-week span, we're going to have a couple more, I don't know, up at the bat.
It's like we're going to give you as much Horizon as we can while we make the one that you actually want.
Right.
But that's going to take a couple of years.
It's making Aloy feel like a Nepo baby or something. Like like I like her already. I really like Aloy. I like these games, but how much they're like, Aloy. I'm like, it makes me not trust that they think she's good enough and like trust her games to be good enough that she could just relax and not get all these crazy things all the time.
Well, I mean, so it is, Herman Hulst did come from Guerrilla and now he's the co-head of PlayStation and whatnot. So I'm sure if he has to put his thumb on a scale for a new franchise, I mean, he knows this thing inside and out. So there's probably something going on there. Yeah, it's a funky thing. And the game that you're waiting for, Jeff, it seems like the rumors are the next Horizon game that's coming out is kind of the co-op one. Is that going to do it for you?
Like a Horizon 3, but it also has co-op?
I think it's going to be
live service kind of.
It might be a little live servicey. Yeah, it seems like it's probably going to a little bit closer to maybe the Monster Hunter mold than a classic full live service thing, or the rumors at least. But
I don't know.
Okay.
That sounds like it has a good fate.
Hey,
the
there
fate
we
of
go.
that one.
It's going to be interesting. Let's see. Alan Wake 2, Haley, the DLC coming in October. Lake House.
I saw a really great meme that was, those two houses in Los Angeles, and one's like the goth girl house and one's the pink Barbie house, and they're sitting next to each other. It's like Night Springs is the pink Barbie, and this one's so going to be the goth girl, and I really am excited to see goth girl DLC. Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome one to play in October for sure.
The vibes will be immaculate. I just love that it's coming out in October too. Yeah, because I stack October for I rewatch things that are autumn vibes. I only play horror games in that month and stuff to really amp up the vibes. Like I re-downloaded Dead by Daylight recently, which I haven't played in a year, and I'm like, I'm gonna play a lot of Dead by Daylight in October, and this is another one that'll just slot in there so perfectly with like Pillsbury Doughboy, pumpkin cookies, and candles, all that vibe.
Take me there. I think the biggest surprise of this whole thing is, I think overall State of Play, little underwhelming, gave us some breadcrumbs for the future, right? But you look at it, they announced Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver is coming back. This has been up there for the franchises that fan base has been screaming. I don't know, Jeff, tell me if I'm wrong with this read, but in terms of the fan demand of bring this back, I think Soul Reaver, Legacy of Kain, top 7. Fair to say, Captain?
Yeah, okay, I'll co-sign that.
Oh, Hanson's so obviously trying to get a clickbait pull-out clip from this. I'm so excited.
No, these games are cool. I know Ben Reeves back at Game Informer was a huge fan. If you wanted Zelda on the PS1, kind of Soul Reaver was the best you could do there. But
was the best you could do.
Yeah,
ringing endorsement.
Yeah. But it's going to be fun, I think, because it's coming out December 10th, I believe, for Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver 1 and 2. And kind of the funny history for this thing is, Amy Hennig, who went on to create Uncharted. This was one of her first big projects. It's near and dear to her heart. Yeah. So I think it'd be kind of fun before we jump into her Marvel game, that Marvel 1943 thing that is presumably coming out next year, from her to go back and see Amy Hennig's narrative origins with Soul Reaver here. But I'm happy for the Soul Reaver fans. They finally got something. It's not a new game, but the remastered looks solid. So everyone be happy and never complain again is the message here.
I'm happy.
That's it. Anything else we want to hit before we leave PlayStation behind?
I thought that Towers of Aghasba looked interesting.
No, you didn't, Jeff. Who you kidding?
I never heard of it.
You've never heard of Aghasba?
No.
Good.
I'm an Aghasba newbie.
I can't believe you submitted that.
But yeah, different monsters and creatures, and then farming. Put the farming in there in a 3D kind of open world exploration thing.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Yeah. Hey, Aghasba. No shame here.
Ben didn't have image ready for that.
No, he didn't have a video for that one. Go figure.
How did you see that, Halo? You can't watch the show while you're in the show. It's the rules.
Oh, totally. I have chat open, so I do pay attention.
Do it.
I think that game looks cool too. It's not, you don't always get the crossover of farming type sim game with that pretty of graphics. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited for that.
Oh, I thought Hell Is Us looked like it could be kind of interesting.
Yeah, that was bizarre. So it started out just dark, somber tones, and I was like, okay, I don't need another game like this. I think we're doing fine. And then showing the first enemy really got me. Just some freaky enemies with a huge mouth and cool character designs. Okay, they're turning me around fast for this thing.
It lifted it out of what looked like it was going to be just kind of another generic action-y thing. I thought the enemy design looked really interesting, and I don't know, there was just one little moment in the trailer. He's got a little drone floating next to him, and there was one moment where he uses the drone to lift himself up high in the air and then come down, and I was like, that looks fun.
That's
that looks
something.
Cool.
Yeah, it definitely does look like a fusion of Death Stranding and a Souls game or something. It's a really weird style to it, but just that enemy design alone, I think it looks really creative and odd. But yeah, Hell Is Us. Do they have a release date for this thing? I don't think 2025 for when this is
apparently this was announced all the way back in 2022 and then just has been dark since then.
Really? Oh. Wow, I completely forgot about it. But yeah, good pull. Oh, by the way, we should mention Astro Bot is getting DLC. That's the speedrunning DLC. 5 new levels, 10 new bots. Hang on, can I talk about this real quick? Yeah. I was hoping, so they got, hey, Helldivers and Stellar Blade in Astro Bot. Here we go. I I was waiting for this to be like the Final Fantasy DLC. And I know it's stupid, but like that's the biggest glaring omission from Astro Bot's robot collection is like, where's the Final Fantasy
I was waiting
stuff?
for them the whole game.
Yeah. And like the weird thing is for the PS5 pack-in game, they had like Cloud's Buster Sword, but it wasn't a bot. It was just like the sword itself. And so that was my first indication of like, is Square being weird with this? Or is it them insisting on the character can't be in there, but the sword can? But, you know, there's still hope. I mean, if they want to make a big splash, I could see another round of kind of speed run new levels all focused on Final Fantasy stuff. Like that does seem like it would have a huge impact, I think. Jeffem? Resident wise old man. Can you tell us the ways of UFO 50?
He didn't like that.
Did he not? I wasn't looking at his face when I saw it.
UFO 50 is a game that we've been waiting many years to come out.
Yeah, 2017 is when UFO 50 was technically unveiled.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It has been a long time. As we all know, Haley, 7 years.
Remaster if it came out then.
What is this thing, Jeffem?
50 retro style games from a team of indie developers, including Derek Yu, who's like an indie dev hero to many, including me. And it like, so it's obviously up my alley because it's all like early 80s. They're all styled after early 80s. The interesting thing that people might not know is that they created like a fictitious video game developer for all these, and they're all kind of under that masthead, and they like created employees for all the games, and they kind of have this entire history. And so as you're going through the games, they're presented chronologically, and so they start at the earliest and they go on, and you can see like bits and pieces of like them developing as a developer as you're going through these games, and like characters get reused or like put into different franchises and things like that. And so I had high hopes going into it, and I put 25 hours into it over this past week, and have been like every night I've gone to bed at like 3 a.m. after playing just way too much and like getting sucked into a game and playing for like 3 hours just on one game, and it's a different game every night. Like the hit rate on these games, at least for me, and you know, part of that might be that like it's in my wheelhouse to begin with, but like the design of them is just so impressive that it almost feels braggadocious for like these indie devs to be like, look how many good old style games that we can create that feel new, that feel creative. It's not like, part of it for me is that when you get a compilation of games, like your expectations just get lowered, and you feel like, especially Nintendo's like the biggest offender of like the 1-2 switches, and they had that like 30 tabletop games or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's always the simplest, most derivative things based on other ideas that already exist. And like, there must have been a mission statement for this of like, every freaking game has to be its own thing. Like they'll borrow from genres, but there's always some interesting twist on it. And like, I can go down a list of great games in here that like, if these games actually came out in the 80s, like for the NES, and you put together a top 50 NES list, like it would be flooded with these titles. It's absurd.
They'd be the top 7 for sure.
Yeah. I mean, this year, if Party House, which is one of these 50 games, if this was its own game, I would be fighting for it in the
Party House.
Really? Okay.
So good. That's my favorite.
That was one where like I was cruising through all the games because like I want to see all 50 before we record this podcast, and Party House is one of those that's like, this seems wild. I can't wrap my head around it. I will come back to you later. But have we all been playing UFO 50 just to set the table here?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
but I've probably only played like 15 games of the 50 so far.
You're set. We won't kick you out or anything. Jeff, that is the thing that's fascinating. There's a lot that's fascinating about UFO 50, but I think about it a lot of like that conundrum of, if you could time travel with a game, if you could release Super Meat Boy on, let's say PS1, with somewhat close fidelity? Like, would it be, how iconic of a franchise would it be? And that is the wild thing of playing this game, of like, I've never thought about that time travel more, of just, if you dropped any of these games into the past, I feel like they would be juggernauts in the gaming space. Because Leo, okay, I'm very curious what everybody's take. Leo, in particular, you seem to be one of those respectfully let the past die kind of guys, of like, look, the old games, some of them are interesting, but come on, everybody, we don't need to glorify this. But that is my biggest surprise with this game, is going to these, playing all these things and just realizing that, like, that's not just a fun throwback thing. They're all really clever, good new games in just retro constraints. Is that kind of the experience you've had? Or why are you so in love with this thing?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is something I didn't expect to be super in love with, because these are accurate to the time, not just in their style and how they're made, but in how hard they are.
Sure.
And part of the reason I don't go back to games of this era very much is, like, I don't have the nostalgia that gives me the patience to learn it and get through it. And of course, they're not all as meticulously designed to be like learnable and masterable. Some of them are just made poorly and annoying, which hasn't been true for any of these games yet, except Onion Delivery. But even that, it's like
stinky.
Every game I play, sometimes it'll start out like, what's going on with this one? This one seems stupid. But as I play 20 minutes, I begrudgingly have to go like, this is masterable. This is made with intent, and I have to respect it. And the big thought I'm having on the retro thing is, like, it's giving me this respect for the language of video games, for lack of a better term, the language of game design.
Yeah. Because
so many of these games could have been made on the NES. Party House is a deck builder where you're inviting different guests to your party. Your deck is your Rolodex of, like, contacts of people you're inviting, and they come randomly, and you, like, have to do really basic math. Numbers go up and down. It's a few simple sprites. This could be on NES, but just game design hadn't reached that point yet. And it's interesting to me to think about, like, how they, in that era, they were pushing the bounds of technology and of game design, and they were their own step in pushing it further. And now that it's gotten so far, it's like, what can we do with, like you said, in those constraints? And it's really just interesting and exciting and nostalgic without being old.
Yeah. So it's like, there was, you know, as I'm flying through these things, you can look at the genre and be like, okay, I think I get what they're going for here. But a good example is just like Lords of Disconia was one where I saw, it's like, oh, it's going to be a strategy game. Like, okay, this will be one that I don't really have the time to jump into in a big way now, but I'll check it out. And then it's like, okay, yeah, it's a strategy game, but it's basically strategy shuffleboard or strategy curling, where, like, your little discs that are bumping into each other. And it's like, okay, even that is just a really clever twist on a genre that I'm not usually intrigued by. And it's like, damn it, they got me. This is also a really good idea. Or just, you know, early on, just that simple example of, like, okay, this is a game where you're racing around as a car, but it's basically going to be Splatoon if you were in a car. And it's
That's
like, yep,
one of my favorite ones.
It's really good.
Yeah, and it is such a, like, that is definitely one of those where I can totally just conceivably see it on an older system as, like, if someone had just thought of this, this would have been a great game that we all remember fondly.
Yeah. Why didn't they try? So the Party House is your favorite, Haley?
Oh, that one's so good. I like kind of what Leo's saying is, like, you go, oh, okay, I'll pluck my way through these, and I'll play this for a couple hours, and then one gets its hooks in you, and you play it for hours and hours and hours in a row. And yeah, Party House it could be a Balatro, like, separated and be its own thing. Like, I still haven't beat the first scenario or whatever. You have to invite 4 aliens to the party, but they cost a lot of popularity to get them. So you'll do it a couple times and you're like, okay, I really need to prioritize money in the late game, popularity in the early game. Like, it's so, like, there's so much depth to it.
Yeah.
It's really amazing that's just, like, game design back in our 80s, in our timeline, because this kind of feels like the games that came out in the 80s in an alternate universe or something.
A better universe,
truly,
yeah.
A better universe is, like, they could have come up with these things, but that's just not where game design was at that point, like Leo's saying. But to have the constraints of, like, this specific type of art style and, like, imagining if this was an NES or something, what would they bump up against, but still creating a game that works against those, but it's not like they blew it up and all of a sudden it was like a Plucky Squire vibe and it was 3D, right? They're like, no, this has got to stick within these confines, but let's just go crazy with the game design side. That's such a genius idea for a collection of games because it feels like it has its own lore now. It has its own like mini universe when it could just be a collection of look at our Game Jam games that we thought were cool that we just ended up finishing for you guys.
Yeah, I think it was
extra
like
effort in.
Is another level of appreciation when, you know, I was jumping through the games, having a fine time. There's some that really got their hooks in me, which I want to get into. But then it was that idea of like, okay, I'm kind of confused by the controls in some of these. Okay, if I hit X on the menu, you can look through and learn the controls ahead of time before you jump in. But then also it'll give you a description of the game. But then my favorite is it'll give you kind of like the development backstory. And that's where I feel like the really fun, weird world building stuff is. If it just tells the story of like, okay, this was this art director's first attempt at making a game on his own and it was coming from this direction, or like this was originally supposed to be a sequel to that, or this was kind of seen as a spiritual successor to UFO Soft's first game. It's like that type of just kind of dopey little flavor text, like 2 sentences, I feel like adds so much for just trying to string all 50 of these things together into its own world.
Right. Yeah. And having it laid out chronologically, having it go up within the span of just a few years, but year by year, the games get noticeably more complicated and the more graphically advanced ones are towards the end. And yet it all does feel like it could have been on one system. Yeah. It's like really spellbinding more than a random collection. It adds a lot.
Yeah. It's a weird thing to like play this, and the game Campanella really got me, where it's like, okay, you're in that little UFO flying around. It feels a little like a balloon trip or something, which I'm very into, just like dodge the obstacles.
Mini clip, like those old mini clip games.
Sure. Yeah. So it was like, okay, I am super into this. And then it's such a weird sensation that only UFO 50 can provide of continuing to play all these games chronologically. Then be like, oh, they made a sequel to my favorite game from 10 minutes ago, Campanella. And then like keep playing, like they made a third Campanella. It's just like uncovering this wham, bam, bam in an exciting, weird way. And then like, oh, then they made the racing spin-off to Campanella. And then they made like the Campanella where you're the guy outside of the ship and there's no UFO whatsoever. It's like, God, all of this is so cool to have strung together.
I liked Mortal was one of the first ones that like really blew my mind, because you're playing as these little guys. Like it's basically a side scroller, almost like a Metro or like a Contra or something, but you have 20 guys and you have to sacrifice them as you are playing. Like you blow some up to open up areas, or like you can fly, horizontally to take out enemies. But then also if you hit a wall, like the guy's head sticks into the wall and he sticks out really perpendicularly, and you can use him as a platform. So and then you like the number of guys you have carries over to the next level. So it's like this slow grind of realizing that you're running out of population. And so I really like that one. And then the same thing, like, 20 games later, you get to Mortal 2, and it's like completely open world kind of Metroid game. And now you have different you just start with 99 guys and you have to beat the entire thing, and they have different classes now that you're like trying to run them through, and they all have different power-ups that you can drop and leave there for these different things. And it was like, this is such a cool, and I think like the design notes for that one was like, you can't get more lives as you're going. It has the darker tone that they originally intended for the first game. And it's like, this is such a cool, like weird experiment of a game. And like, and there are just so many bangers in there that I want to keep. Like, I play this game, and there are times while I'm playing it where I'm like, God, I really want to go back and play. Like, I'm missing the games that like I could jump out and keep playing those too, but like I'm torn between all of these ones that I'm really enjoying.
I want to speak on Mortal specifically because I kind of had bad luck when I started this game, where I was picking games that weren't the strongest, and I still am not crazy about. But Mortal was the first one I found, which what I learned was I need to just jump quicker when I'm not into it. There's plenty to fall in love with immediately, and then you can fall in love with the harder to fall in love with ones later. So I definitely recommend that. But Mortal was so like that alternate universe we're talking about. A lot of these have story intros, little cutscenes of various qualities. And this one is like, the world's under attack. How many will have to die to save the planet? And then, it's you're sacrificing one person for every action you're doing. And it's such a weird, dark concept that also is so mechanically interesting. I totally fell in love.
And how did no one ever think of this before? Like there have been so many 2D side-scrolling games like this. It's really great.
I think the first one that was like, wait a minute, that I was going through was Magic Garden. It's like, oh, this is my jam. This is exactly the type of game I love.
I bounced off that one so fast. That's interesting. That
Haley, you gotta go back to that Magic Garden. Because like, did you understand the rules of it? It's very complicated.
You got to drop off little babies in the stars, and then I guess I was I'm bad at Snake, so I was like, oh, it's a Snake vibe one, so I'll probably
right.
And that is why I think it's a great example though, because it's like clearly you start it and it's like, oh, it's like Snake, but it also kind of has elements of Pac-Man in it, and like there's enough like interesting twists where it's like, okay, like this is its own thing, and it's a cool kind of twist off of that basic idea.
Yeah, or like Overbold, which is kind of a Robotron type thing, but also the enemies are randomly generated, and you're hedging your bets for riskier levels to get more points to do upgrades, and you have to like beat a certain amount of waves to beat a run. It's ends up having this depth, and a game like that, which there are so many, is so run based that I love bouncing around. I love going, I'm in the mood to do a run of Overbold, and then I'll jump into something else. Like, oh, it's been a while, I could try that one again and see how I do it.
Yeah.
There's another thing I love about this is they have an implied sort of connection to like our universe, where in their 80s there also was a few games marketed to girls and then other ones marketed to boys, and it was like very clear. It's like, oh, like that Garden one was clearly one in their universe that was marketed towards girls at the time, with like a very distinct color palette and like art style and stuff. Because growing up, essentially getting told like this one's gonna be for me just by looking at it, I was like, they even implemented that vibe into their collection of 80s games. It's like, no, this one's for you and this one's for you. Obviously it's not actually true, but that's just the way games got made back then.
Right. Yeah, it is such an odd thing. I mean, it made me think a lot of Atari 50, not just because of the name, Kelsey, but like, you know, I love, you love, everyone who's rational and sane on Earth loves Atari 50. At the same time, you jump through every game in that package, maybe play it for 45 seconds, you'd be like, got it, yuck, moving on, it's a cool piece of history, got it. And like, imagine that, but if every game you jump into, basically it's like, wait a minute, clever. Like it's just night and day for that sensation of jumping through an old console catalog, which we've all done at some point in our lives, I think.
There was another one called Valbrace, which is like first-person dungeon crawler in like this Shadowrun kind of way, which I got interested in those probably like 6 months ago and wanted to play like some of the old school ones, which are basically unplayable. But in this one, like, so it's like the first person, you have a first person picture of where you are, and then you always like move or turn, and it shows you like the next image of that, like very old school dungeon crawler. But then when you run into enemies, like it enters this real time combat that's like Punch-Out, where it's like you move back and forth to dodge enemies, and then you get in your attacks, and it's like, my God, this is like such a perfect pairing for this kind of game. I ended up playing that one for like 3 hours one night. And that one's nice because once you get like to the next floor of the labyrinth that you're going through, like it saves there. So you just restart at that one, because it is one of those like very hard games. But it's just like every time I think I've got a game pegged and I'm not that interested in it, it's like there's this additional twist to it that is really smart.
Yeah. I didn't really get Mooncat. Like the controls.
That one was
of the weirdest
really.
ones.
I saw someone recommend that one, and then I was like, "Am I stupid?"
Yeah, like what are these controls? I'm just like a little.
I cannot wrap my head around those controls.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I started that one on the stream and I played like 10 minutes of it. I ended up going back to it and beating that one because you do like eventually wrap your head. Like I beat it, but at the end of it, it said like you found one egg in there. I guess there are 3 eggs. So there are like secret levels in there that I hadn't gotten to, but you do like eventually wrap your head. Like I was convinced that like the game shipped with a bug, and that's just not the way that it's supposed to control.
I thought that too.
But
like
once
it
you
wasn't
get
Steam Deck compatible yet or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but
I did also look at the controls and be like, "Am I doing?"
Yes, exactly.
It seemed like the controls were saying something completely different.
Yes,
too, but
yeah.
But even that is like an NES version of a QWOP or a Getting Over It, where it's intentionally really hard.
Yeah.
But then you can learn it. Like that is almost a modern design convention done in the NES way.
And that one also has the best music too.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I mean, just in the realm of surprises, like even towards the end, it's like, okay, this seems like it's going to kind of be their Dragon Quest RPG. Got it. That's cool that this is included. Then I boot up the game Grimstone, and it's like, it's a Dragon Quest homage to Sunset Riders. Like, oh my God. Like the title screen is just Sunset Riders, one of my favorite games of all time. It's like, I will now play through all of Grimstone. That seems so freaking sweet.
And when you start it, it's like a burning saloon, and you play as an angel, and you choose which 4 characters to save from burning to death, and then those become your party members. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, it's really, really smart design. I'm glad they worked on this game for as long as they did, just to up the quality bar for all of these retro things, because there's, not to say it's easy, but there is like a cheaper version of this, which is fine. And I'm so glad that it excels so far beyond that.
It's fun having just talked about the beginner's guide on Bonus Pod, which has a little room of all the creators' ideas they never made, little text floating of these absurd ideas for games. That's kind of what this feels like, is just games that don't have, like, I don't know, they don't warrant the length that they would need to be a full game for purchase, necessarily, but they are enough to be a fun 3 hours within this, which becomes an insane price proposition that this is only $25.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And also, like, a lot of the multiplayer focused ones, I'll play something like Hyper Contender and be like, oh, I could see this being a game that you play with friends at night for hours, and like, that bar for a fun local co-op game, like, they clearly understand it, and they still have like interesting twists even in those games. Hyper Contender is like the fighting game, but it has like, you have to collect rings that you knock out of enemies, like your opponent, when you hit them down, and then it will slowly like spawn more rings. You have to get to like 5 rings or something like that. I ended up playing through that entire one as well, and just being like, this is so much more fun than I fight from normal fighting games. And it was so intense when I got to like the final fight, and like you're just constantly going back and forth, and that was just against the computer. Like playing that with a friend would be a blast.
And half of the games in here are multiplayer, which is so nuts. I'm really excited to try more of them that way.
Yeah, and it's super smart that you can favorite some along the way so you don't lose them, but you can also sort everything by multiplayer only. You can sort it by like, what is it, like quick fun, thinky games. It has like really good ways to kind of categorize, what are you in the mood for? We can jump here. And then you also can kind of, there's little achievements for each game, which is also a diabolical way. And it's like you get that and it kind of builds up this garden space, which is just, again, it'd be easy just to be able to jump into these games and jump back out. But like, oh no, we're going to put little carrots in all of these games if you care about building on kind of
they change color on the main screen, which is so satisfying.
It's very smart.
You get a normal ending, it turns gold. You can get like a cherry completion, which is like doing everything perfectly or whatever, and it turns red.
Yeah. I
think I'm like sucked in by the games I really love, and then I think I'm going to be stuck to complete ones that I wouldn't necessarily have put that much time into because the cohesion is so strong, and it's so fun to be like chipping away at every different little part of this collection. I want to shout out Rock On Island as well.
Which one's that?
That is a tower defense.
Caveman tower defense.
Oh, yes. I was confused. I feel like I didn't play that one much, but I tried jumping into it and I was like, I can't really take out that many dinosaurs. Am I missing the ability to like plant towers or something?
Yeah, you can plant towers.
Well, that helps. Okay. I was just using my basic attack.
Yes. That one is a great one to do one run every once in a while and chip away at it. And it's like that and the clicker one, Pilot Quest. It's like these small pared down versions. This clicker that is completable in a reasonable amount of time, and then you're done with it. This tower defense, which is not super complicated or crazy or a million things on screen. It's just like a few impactful decisions and you watch them play out. These are like versions of these genres that I've always wanted, that are super approachable, super clean, and I don't feel dwarfed by their size.
Yeah. And I feel like we are committed to beating the game called Mini and Max that's in this game, or Min and Max. I mean, it's right there. Even that's a fun one where it's like a platformer where you can like shrink down to a tiny person or get really big. It's like, all right, that's good.
I
that's
think
fun.
we should sue them, actually.
Oh, that's a really good idea.
I hadn't
thought of that. Good idea.
Yeah, that is super smart. But yeah, UFO 50. Yeah, Derek Yu kind of spearheaded this thing with a bunch of other indie developers, like the creator of Downwell. He made games for it. One of the designers of Time Barons, which is one of my favorite board games, which Derek Yu co-designed. Like he also designed some video games for this too. So it's just a cool kind of murderer's row of game designers here. But
Any other favorites for people?
Ooh, it's hard to-
Rail Heist.
That was
Have
funky.
you played Rail Heist, Lee?
What was that one?
Yes.
Yeah, it's you're a cowboy and you are stealing gold on a train, but once the enemies see you, it turns into like 9-second turn-based combat. And so you have to you can knock them out and then run away and break through the floor to get into the next area and stuff. It had almost like Streets of Rogue hints to me that I ended up putting a lot of time into.
Nice. The Tactics was
Great
a
one.
solid, really cool one where you get boosts and everyone's just in a straight line as they're ramming against each other. Again, it's like,
Auto battler.
yeah, it should be a strategy game that I'm not into, but it got me. It's cool as hell.
I like the Pong tennis one set in Japan. I forget the name of it. And you're just trying to go through and defeat every single other person. It's number 14 on the chronological list, if that helps.
Okay, coming up. In the meantime, Night Manor.
Ooh,
So
the
good.
freaky.
Blasted through that. It's an NES horror game, point and click adventure. Genuinely, with headphones on Steam Deck in bed at night, so scary. Which is such a unique vibe. It's so amazing. Bushido Ball.
Oh, yes.
Bushido Ball.
That was
There we
very
go. There
fun.
we go.
Yeah, another instance of okay, it's Pong, we get it, except you have different characters and they have different power-up moves that they can do, and it's you got to hit it a couple times in order to unlock your power-up, and then you're fighting all these different characters. It's just very smart, and I'm sure would be a blast playing it 2-player.
Yeah.
Hotfoot also is like Windjammers almost, but you're scooting beanbags as grade schoolers in gym class.
Yeah.
So cute and fun. I've barely scratched the surface of this thing, and I've already got so much to talk about.
Oh, that's nice. You said your friend Kobe Joe is also over the moon about it.
Yeah. Yeah, excited to try these 2-player games with him for sure.
Oh,
But he's
yeah.
in TGS right now, Tokyo Game Show, showing off Donkey and Cabbage.
There we go. I'm really curious about. I was checking the Reddit today to see what is the community thinking about the terminal, where you can enter kind of codes and stuff. It seems, and so people were finding kind of things to type into the terminal in really odd places in the game. They're kind of hidden throughout, the credits for this one game, one's in there and one of them's over here. And so I'm curious to see how much of a larger kind of mystery web is how I think everyone's kind of expecting it coming from the designer of Spelunky, but we don't really know yet how deep it goes. But
No, we sure don't. But even within games, it's people have been. In the MinnMax Discord, we have a UFO 50 channel, which is great because there's so much to talk about and hints to give each other, which is of course part of the era that this game harkens back to, is you're just sharing information, sharing stuff you heard. But yeah, people have been beating games and then finding out there's secret collectibles all throughout that game. And I guess I have to go back to it. Secrets
wild.
within each game, as well as definitely some secrets for the whole collection.
Yeah. UFO 50. They did it, everybody. We waited a long time, and by God, they've done it. I love that even people who don't like retro games necessarily are into this. That's a complete mission accomplished.
Do you want to hear the most satisfying thing?
Sure.
This was the 50th game I logged on backlogged for this year. I was like, yes,
Nice.
perfect. But I guess technically that means I've played 100 games.
It's true.
Get it?
Oh,
Can we try to make a list of games that you could play in order with numbers? After 50,
Ooh, that's a
there's
good
an
idea.
area 51. I get kind of lost after that.
new 52.
Oh, Action 52.
Ooh.
Nice.
Is there a Heinz ketchup game? So 57.
This might start to fall apart after 11 or 12.
No, this is fun. Kelsey, let's do it right now. All right, everybody.
Halo 1.
Halo 2.
Actually, there is a game just called One, ONE. So
Okay.
that should obviously be number 1.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Brothers,
Right.
A Tale of Two Sons.
does it have to start with it then?
What?
UFO 50
rules
doesn't.
No,
this
UFO
game.
50 doesn't start with it. 50.
Okay. So we could say any two. So what would be the most fun two to use?
Halo 2.
Halo 2, of course. And number 3, of course, has to be.
3 Vikings? Lost Vikings?
Oh, that's
There's
good.
just 3 of them. It's not called 3 Vikings.
It's called Lost Vikings. Okay, we're stumped. We need a third one. Jeff, give us a 3. Give us a 3.
Wait, are you thinking of, it's Three Dirty Dwarfs, right? That's what you're thinking of?
Of course.
Yeah.
We're not thinking about 3. Okay, 3 Dirty Dwarves. 4 is Battlefield 4, of course.
For Honor.
4 Honor, correct. Okay, this is boring up until we get to like, let's start where Final Fantasy stops. So
New show plus.
Okay, number 17.
Just run through this whole thing.
Yeah,
17 again for Game Boy Advance.
That's right. That's right.
That's got to exist.
There is a Mary Kate and Ashley Sweet 16.
Okay, we'll take that.
So,
we'll take that.
Nice.
Hey, Haley. Welcome to your wheelhouse. It finally happened. Just when everybody was not thinking about it and we're all drifting off to sleep peacefully, Nintendo lawyers came a-rat-tat-tatting on the window, and they came calling for our beloved Palworld. The game...
Smashing their briefcases to Nintendo.
No kidding. Do you remember when Palworld came out in like January and everyone said, oh, they're going to be in trouble? And then it was silence until September, and then they were in trouble.
On a whole different area of law, of IP law too.
Okay, so you're an IP lawyer. Can you help us out? So the headline is Palworld has been sued. That's the best way to put it, Your Honor?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
by Nintendo and the Pokemon Company, quote, on the grounds that Palworld, a game developed and released by the defendant, infringes multiple patent rights. Nintendo will continue to take necessary actions against any infringement of its intellectual property rights, including the Nintendo brand itself, to protect the intellectual properties it has worked hard to establish over the years. Back off,
Poor
please.
Nintendo.
Poor Nintendo.
Aw, they work so hard.
So the twist, and this is what we need your help on, is it's not like they said, hey, that looks like Psyduck, here's a lawyer. They said, no, these are the patents we're coming after you for. Can you explain what's going on there?
There's different types of IP law, and feel free to interrupt me because I might just ramble forever about this because this topic's complicated. But yeah, no, so copyright's completely different from patents. There's copyright, trademarks, patents, and then like kind of trade secrets, but that's just if you're good at keeping a secret, you get to keep the secret. It's not really, it's its own thing. But the Pepsi recipe, one of the most classic trade secrets, the Guinness recipe, it's mostly drinks and stuff. But so patents are completely different from copyright. Copyright's artistic expression, so music, art, code, text, all that kind of stuff. So the actual look of the characters is what we were talking about last time when Palworld came out. So, that happens to look a lot like Lucario. That would be like a copyright analysis to if they substantially took too much of that design to make it their own and benefit off of Nintendo's IP. But this is patent analysis. So patents protect inventions is like the easiest way I could maybe describe it. So it's like processes, compositions, methods, like all these things could be a patent. But what I've been screaming about since 2018 is that there's a lot of game mechanic patents getting approved that shouldn't be getting approved, I think. Because one of the core things behind patent law is you can't patent an idea. Like if I tried to patent 2 + 2 = 4, the world would stop working, right? Like every time someone did math, I'd be like, give me $10. Like it would just
satellites
would
would fall out of the sky. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you're supposed to patent the function of things. So even if your patent is kind of idea-ish, if you're trying to protect how that idea functions, then it could still be protected. But what case law in Canada and the US and Japan too has been finding is that if the thing you're trying to patent protect, if the only new thing about it is just the idea of it, even if it's happening on computer, that's where it gets really confusing. As soon as computers came around, software patents got really confusing and the courts were like, like they didn't know how to deal with it because all of a sudden it gets way more complicated when you go from like a toilet seat to like a complicated software system. It's like, is this idea just happening on a computer or is it an idea? And like, doesn't matter that it's on a computer, it just is still an idea. But then it's also hard because sometimes it seems like an idea, but there's still patent protecting the function of something occurring and it happens to happen on a computer. It's really confusing.
So, I mean, you mentioned during the PlayStation Reaction stream that Dynasty Warriors had a patent on changing the difficulty of the number of enemies around you. Like that's an example of something that seems like you shouldn't be able to patent that.
There's lots of them. Like what's an example? Katamari's patented, like pushing a ball and the ball gets bigger as more things get lumped into it. Like no one.
There's like a super old one too, and I'm trying to find it so I don't butcher this, but I know that like Philips was suing everybody in the beginning because they had a patent that was basically just on like kind of the concept of a video game. Like 2 objects on a screen are colliding and reacting to each other, which is just like
Palworld.
Every single video game. And I don't know what ultimately ended up happening with that patent, if it's like still around or is expired or they've, thrown it out or whatever since then. But like a lot of companies got burned by that. I know in the like in the 80s and 90s, because they were just like, well, sure, that's a stupid patent. Surely I don't have to license it. And then they did.
Weird. So
there was a Namco one that for playable mini games and loading screens.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
is from
that expired right when loading screens got quick. So I was like,
yeah, right.
Right. Yeah. But
what an evil act. What a better world we would have.
I know.
If we could have those.
That was Sega that patented that. That expired in 2015. But they had the entire, like, you get a monopoly on the market for 20 years. Canada, US, Japan, it's all 20 years. A lot of places it's 20 years. Other places, it's jurisdictionally based as well. So, like, if I want to patent protect something, I have to file in every jurisdiction I want to have that monopoly in. So I don't just say, I'm filing a patent and it applies throughout the whole world. I have to apply in US, Canada, Japan, like all the countries in Europe I want to market to if I want those monopolies. So
is what is happening here is judges can't understand video games. So patents have just been handed out willy-nilly since the origins of video games, and everyone's sitting on these war chests of confusing nebulous video game patents. And this is the first real example of a company using it as a way to attack a game that it's clearly mad at because it's ripping them off in other ways.
So it's not judges judges would deal with infringement issues, but this would be like the USPTO, the Canada Intellectual Property Office, the Japanese Intellectual Property Office. They're the ones that get the application. So when you get a patent, you don't just get it like with copyright. Like I could scribble on a piece of paper and I could hold it up and be like, here's my smiley face. And I own that copyright. I don't have to do anything extra. You get benefits if you register it, but you don't have to. You still own it. But with patents, you don't get the patent unless you file it. And there's all these requirements to patentability. Like I can't just walk in and be like, here's my toilet seat. They're going to say toilet seats exist. You don't get a patent on a toilet seat, you idiot. Like you have to have something that's new, non-obviousness, and useful. And those are the requirements for patentability.
Okay,
and it has to be a subject matter.
Is this the concern though? Is the idea that everyone just has a war chest of nebulous patents and now it's kind of game on?
So what's unfortunately happened is all these patents have been approved over the years that arguably I think are just ideas that are executed via software, but because they're written very software-y weird, that they get approved because it sounds like they're trying to get the functionality occurring on a software approved, but really it's just I could delete all the references to computers and stuff, and they're ultimately just trying to protect like this happens, and it's like that shouldn't be protected. That's the antithesis of the point of a patent system. Otherwise, nothing would happen. So, like for example, they owned Nintendo owns a ton of patents. They had one for Eternal Darkness. Yeah, it was the one that has Link in the patent drawings, which is super funny. I don't know why they did that. But their patent protected the insanity meter in the corner of the screen. So the lower your insanity goes, the more crazy stuff happens. It was what the patent protected. That's just an idea that happens to happen on a computer, right? Like, why are we patent protecting that? Sure. But because software patents were so new and it was kind of a confusing, nebulous time. In the 90s, a ton of them got approved because they were like, computers, yeah. They were like, approved, like the Knuckles thing. Like literally, they were just like approving all these. Now it's a lot harder to get software patents protected. Like the Nemesis system patent took 6 tries.
Oh, wow.
And then finally Warner Brothers got it. But I've read that patent
got us, stranger.
Oh my God. It's the worst patent it's one of the worst patents I've ever seen. I was talking to my coworker at my office who's a patent agent, which is a whole different type of lawyer who writes patents. And I was like, can you read this for me? Like, what do you think? He's like, how'd they get this approved? This is awful. Like, it's crazy. They just get lucky. Like the right patent agent might look at it and be like, yeah, I guess so. But then it costs, sorry, what were you going to say?
How often has this been an issue though?
For so long.
But like the suing, like I understand everybody's hoarding these patents, but yes. Like
I want to know why the Nemesis system patent was so awful. I want to know what was awful about it.
Oh, so they have you have to list what claims you're patenting. So essentially like, what's your new thing that fixes a problem that has utility? And you have to put it at the very start. And they have this long list of claims. The first 2 claims essentially say, player interacts with NPC 1, NPC 1 affects NPC 2, which is like I kill orc, his cousin remembers, right? Like that's like if we could boil down the Nemesis system to like one thought, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And then they have like 17 claims that are just baloney garbage. So like a function of the code goes X, Y, blah, 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 like all this nonsense. And at the very end, the last claim is NPC 1, the effect from claim 1, which is player interacts with NPC 1, interacts with NPC 2, also affects NPC 1. So they have a patent for player interacts with NPC 1 and it affects something, which is every game action ever in every game. It's like, what the hell are we doing? It's just written very legalese and confusing. So it seems like what we're trying to protect is the computer doing all of that via a software function. But I guarantee if someone else started making a Nemesis system and they ran the function different through their code, it doesn't have to be the exact, like they have all these nonsense garbage about how their code functions. They'd still be like, oh, but you can't do that because there's and they'd still go after them, right? It's.
But have they? I mean, have people been attacked on these patent things? Much?
Nintendo has sued other companies in the past for patent issues. We just don't really notice it as much. They sued a company in 2017 in the mobile games market in Japan and like ran them to the ground and essentially got, I think, 30 million from them, and they have to pay licensing fees moving forward. So they do it. They haven't done it like this, where it's very like Palworld is very Pokemon coded, and you can tell they're pissed. And they tried copyright, and they probably thought about it, and were like, we might not win, so let's go for patents. And this has been something they've been doing since the 90s. There was an Atari and Nintendo case in the 90s, which is when they figured out that patents are better, which was essentially Atari wanted the code for the 10 NES system, which is like the lockout system that made it so you couldn't play other games on the NES. And they couldn't figure out the reverse engineering of the code. They ended up stealing the code from the Copyright Office, which is a whole other thing. But what that case decided was reverse engineering of code isn't an infringement of copyright, which hadn't been like formally decided at that time. So Nintendo was like, oh, like essentially like, no, like this is.
And that's how we have like legal analog pockets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
As long as you can reverse engineer it and clean room, build it from the ground up.
But yeah, so they were like, shoot, that's the opposite of what we wanted to happen. So they started leaning, and in that same case, they enforced patents too, and the patents got enforced against them. So they were like, patents, just start filing them. They have dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of patents on like anything you could think of, like menu functionality. Like if you pause, in Super Mario Odyssey, when you pause the screen and it says resume ? They have a patent on that. So like if you come back to a game and it asks you, would you like to resume where you last were? They have a patent on that. It's like so much stuff that they let other companies slide with it. But what's bad about this industry specifically is they sit on their ass and choose who they want to enforce it against. And then it creates this weird fear of retribution in the market where now not just other huge game companies like Sony or whatever, but like indies are like, what if they choose me? Like, oh God. And then they have to sit there and go, okay, do we push back release until the patent's expired? Do we remove that game mechanic? Do we release anyways and cross our fingies? But what sucks with Nintendo is the more money you make, the bigger the target gets on your back. So it's like your death of success, right? So if I had a really cool game that had a patented system, Nintendo has, like the throwing a ball, catching something mechanic, which they patent for Arceus back in 2021. They have a patent on that. If I made a game that had, they have so many patents and I've been screaming into the void about this. I'm like, this is gonna suck. But like, it's just like now suddenly people care about it. If someone wanted to make a game where like I throw a sphere to catch like little cakes or something, whatever, you might think, oh, it's different. It's not like Pokemon, but they could potentially try to sue them for that. It would cost so much money to re-examine the patent, try to get it impeached, like hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially. Like only Epic or Sony or Microsoft or something would be the ones that would be like, okay, sue us, let's go and validate your patents. So they probably wouldn't even choose those type of people. They would choose someone right in the middle who's making a lot of money, but might not would necessarily not want to go to court. It might just settle outside of court to move on with their lives. So like they almost don't want them to go to court.
So it's weird. Like they might have a point that Palworld is heavily inspired by Pokemon, but the main ammo they have is just this BS stockpile of patents that a lot of big companies have. So everybody has a target reticle on everybody else. and they can fire when ready.
It's like the nukes. It's like the nukes of the game dev world.
So do we know anything about the patent specifically? Here is probably the ball throwing thing, right?
It's probably the Arceus one, yeah, for sure. But they said multiple patents, and I would imagine they do the same thing they did in 2017 with that mobile game, is they just like flooded them with anyone that could stick. So they're going to throw the Arceus one because that's obvious, because that's in Palworld. But they'll probably, what took so long is probably they were going over every single patent they own and playing the crap out of Palworld and looking at all its code and every single thing it does. And they're going to throw every single patent they could potentially use against them, even if some of them it's like, no, that wouldn't count or whatever. They'll do like the menu functionality, if they have any touchscreen functionality, that Nintendo has a ton of touchscreen functionality, any controller functionality, any like AR aiming functionality. I don't know if that's in Palworld, but like anything like that, they have a bunch of patents on, and they'll just go, and they'll just like chuck every single one, and Pocket Pair is going to go, oh no, and just drown in it.
I don't know anything about anything.
Right.
If this does go to court, and Nintendo does win, does that set precedent that changes anything else or changes how often people would go after these kinds of cases?
This is in Japan as well, as the other thing to think about. So they're suing them in Japan. You can pick the forum in which you sue somebody, but it has to be limited to where your patent's filed and or where the infringement occurred. So I believe the Arceus patent is Japan and US. So they could have chose either jurisdiction, and also they could, it also depends where the infringement occurred, but it also has to be where the patent's filed. So I would think they chose Japan because they did a ton of research and figured out there's enough case law in Japan that specifically favors these specific patents we want to leverage. So let's just do it in Japan so we have a better chance of winning. There might even be case law of them winning with the patents they want to use already. Like the specific patents they want to use, they already won in previous cases. So when they go to court in Japan, the judge would say, in the case you were in, which you won, you brought this exact patent. And it just kind of makes it like, okay, we're going to win because we already won once, essentially, as long as the facts are kind of somewhat similar.
Yeah, it's so weird. I was, I think it was SGF. I was talking to the CEO of the company behind Palworld here, Pocket Pair. And I brought this whole thing up about, Pokemon and the, obvious comparisons and everything, and he's like,
of course it's the ball throwing that is so similar.
That's right, that's it. But he's like, oh no, like our studio's in Tokyo, like we know all those guys from the Pokemon company and Game Freak, and we're good friends, so it's all good. It was his explanation. It's like, yeah, there are other people maybe up in Kyoto that were not friendly about this whole concept.
Right.
It's like when Jeff Keighley says he's friends with Hideo Kojima, and
sure.
Like, you sure, buddy?
Right. Yeah, good job, friendship, yeah.
Definitely, a lot of different people. Like, I mean, it's so much of this industry's beauty is how developers share things with each other.
Right.
At things like GDC, it's all about lifting each other up. If I came up with a cool new idea, I want people to build on it. And then there are other people who are not the creatives that are in this business who are spending their full lives doing horrible like this.
Or maybe
this is the opposite of what patents are supposed to do too. Like patents always kind of seem yucky because you always hear about them in the pharmaceutical sense and like all that kind of stuff. But what they're for is if you think it's going to cost a lot of money to invent this really cool thing that could help society, you deserve to be the only one who sells it for a little bit. And like that tracks. Like back when the light bulb was getting invented, like that patents were the thing that like let people know, okay, you're going to invest pretty much all your savings into making this, but then we'll have electricity after. Dope. But like it doesn't really work here where you're just trying to patent protect orcs being pissed at each other. It's like, shut up. That's not what this is for. This is frustrating.
So you're not giving legal advice here, obviously, but what's your prognostication? What happens here?
I would like to see Nintendo or other patent holding companies sue a big fish, and then they go bet, and they go to court and it invalidates a patent or two, and then they go, ooh, this is a little scary, maybe we won't sue. And then they'll be like, the fear gets shifted back on the patent holders to, let's not enforce our patents so we can at least keep the fear of maybe we will. You know what I mean? It's like, sure. And it kind of sucks that the indies never get to have a say in this whole debacle because trying to invalidate a patent costs literally so much money. But it really, I can see that as one of the only ways forward, and maybe the patent office is also getting a bit better at analyzing these and realizing this is just ideas getting patented. Because the other thing that's really frustrating the most is like the prior art thing is you can't patent something that already exists. And so much of game design is like, oh, that's a cool idea. Here's my spin on it.
UFO
and
50.
it could be a little bit different, but it's still based on prior art, so to speak. And you analyze prior art with something called the POSITA. This is like one of my favorite acronyms, but it's person of ordinary skill in the art. So if I was trying to patent microchip, you have to say, is that obvious? So that like, it's nothing new is created. It's just based on prior art to somebody, not just any person, but a technical engineer. So it has like a higher onus of, if I was making a microchip, Haley, looking at the patent, I'd be like, I don't know if this is obvious or not. I don't know anything about microchips. But to a POSITA who's a technical engineer, they might look at it and say, this is hella obvious. I do this every day at work. And then that could invalidate a patent. But what's annoying with the game mechanics or the things getting patented, a POSITA would be someone who's played every game ever made. Because we're not talking about the functionality of creating a game where a game developer would be the POSITA. Then that makes sense because they can look at the code and say, okay, yeah, this is a unique functionality and this is solving a problem and this is blah, blah, blah. It's like, I think I saw this in a level in Titanfall 2 once.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
That's the prior art. It's not how it functions. It's what it is, which is not what game patents in general is supposed to be protecting. So also that's super stupid. Do you really think the USPTO has people on staff who've played every game ever made? No. So even if it was protecting the idea, which is wrong, first off, shouldn't have been done. But even if then you say, okay, it's protected, is there prior art? It's like, has John Smith in Cubicle 20 played every game ever? No. So then it gets approved for that reason as well.
Yeah. Yeesh.
Haley, can you go in front of Congress and tell them all how stupid they're being and that they need to change how patents work for video games?
I think there just needs to be some kind of update to the patent acts that deals, because the word software doesn't show up in the Canadian or US patent acts anywhere in the entire act. I don't know about Japan because I haven't read those acts. But how do we have acts from like hundreds of years ago that don't have detailed rules about how to analyze software stuff when 50% of all patents filed since 2000 have been software patents? Like 50%. It used to be for basic stuff like buckets and stuff, and now it's like the most complicated technology of all time, and we haven't changed the language a little to adjust for that. It's just we're stuck in this in between where they're just like dragging their feet to update legal precedents and legal rules and stuff. And what's unfortunately happening is that sucks creativity out of industries and benefits the biggest handholders who have the most money to just file a bunch of stuff on the most mundane ideas. That little thing where you go behind a object and you can see your shadow.
Right.
You know, like when Mario goes behind a tree, and but you can still see where he is because there's a shadow. Nintendo has a patent on that.
Damn it.
There's so much they have patents on that people don't even realize. Like I sometimes just go when I'm bored at work and search up their patents and scroll down. I'm like, what? The Splatoon mechanic of spraying paint on the ground?
Uh-oh.
They have everything. It's like they just go and file and file and file. And, you know, they say it's like a 50-50 chance to get a software patent approved because it's it can be hard to get them approved, but they just be filing every day more and more.
Oh my God. Haley McLean, everybody. Thank you.
Amazing. So
Thank
informative.
you.
So
Not
much better.
much legal
Should
advice.
you have charged us for this discussion?
Well, what was really funny was when this news dropped, I was on a plane to give a game mechanic patent talk. Hence why I could talk about it so quickly there, because I just researched it for like a week to get my brain back up to speed on the topic.
Yeah.
And when I landed, I checked my phone and it was like 1 million @s on Twitter just being like, Haley, this is the thing you've been talking about.
You talk
like,
to us
oh my
about your
God.
exact expertise. Oh, that's so silly. Hey, Lee, you know what our expertise is?
Damn ass nothing.
Yeah, patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's, everybody. That's right. If you want to help support content like this directly, if you appreciate having that level of insight from Haley, you can support the team directly by going to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. Keep this whole independent operation around, please. You know, not panicking anybody, but talking about every once in a while, like people drop off all day, every day from the Patreon. You know, like Leo, we just had a big conversation about the numbers behind the Patreon and the business on the latest episode of Bonus Pod, which is in that
Check it out on our Patreon.
check it out on our Patreon, yeah. But like, you know, it's in that discussion, I wanted to bring up that idea of like, if I could just pause where we're at as a patron, like a little support, and ride it for a couple years or forever, I think I would. But you can't. And that means we're always sliding downhill. So we have to push really hard to keep those numbers increasing, or else Jeffem will fade out of existence like Back to the Future. So you can help Jeffem not fade out of existence by going to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. Jump in there, everybody. Keep independent games media alive and relevant. And you can also unlock the podcast version of the Deepest Dive on Zelda and bonus pod each and every week, which Haley normally hosts, and it's truly excellent. It is the missing piece of MinnMax content, so unlock that in the bonus podcast feed. And you can help support some of MinnMax's biggest supporters. I'm, of course, talking about people like I Am 8-Bit. They want you to know about Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, which is available in their wonderful online store. They have the physical version and they have the vinyl soundtrack available in I'm 8-Bit's wonderful online store. So if you want to get a sweet vinyl soundtrack that comes with oh so much, you can check that out in their store, or you can get the PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, or Xbox version of Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, which is a cool kind of Jet Set Radio homage game, but it comes with a ton of physical goodies because I'm 8-Bit does not half-ass anything. And you can go to the wonderful online store and use the promo code Do You Remember? Do You Remember for 10% off of everything in their wonderful online store. And you should help support I'm 8-Bit. Use that promo code Do You Remember, because they are big supporters of ours and they support the MinnMax community as well in a big way by shipping out a prize each and every week to whoever has the best community question. If you're a Patreon supporter at any tier, you submit a question every single week over on Patreon. We choose our favorite. That person gets a prize thanks to I'm 8-Bit. We call it the virtuous cycle in the business. So go help support them. Use that promo code Do You Remember. Keep this rolling. Keep these gifts flying out to the MinnMax community because they are so worthy of these gifts. Are you ready for these wonderful questions?
Heck yeah.
Okay, here we go. Sergeant Peppa writes in, hey, when you get the option to create a character, do you always model them after a specific person, or do you make someone up?
I like this question.
Sergeant Peppa says, I always make my characters look like my wife.
Aww.
And then I kiss her on each cheek and tell her I love her. They
my
probably
friend
say.
does combat. It's like my favorite thing. I always make either myself or someone entirely random. Like, is that egotistical that I make myself? Do you guys do that?
No, I think you should be locked up if you do that.
I make myself if it's not a very involved character creation. I do, approximate, maybe a fun colored hair. But if it's like a really involved one, I make the ugliest character. I want to make myself laugh. I mean, I guess maybe not if it's like a particularly story driven, like I should be caring kind of thing. But, like Elden Ring, I just made the most ridiculous looking person.
It'll never be seen again. Like you're totally fine. Yeah. Cover them up immediately. And then every time you do see him, it's funny. Like I think for one of my Mass Effect playthroughs, I made just a monstrosity, basically a giant clown with like an afro wig and just pale and face all distorted. And I thought it'd be really funny because I'm like, oh, this is my dark playthrough. Then wouldn't this be great? And I feel like every cutscene, I was like, ugh, what am I? This is too far for me. I can handle the evil acts, but looking like such a freak, I just hate it.
I do myself in like farming games for sure. Fields of Mystery. It's cute to have a little Leo running around. And honestly, that's been a perk of going bald. My hair was confusing for character creators. They never quite had anything that really lined up. But now it's like I got some.
They always have bald.
Yeah, exactly. Got some iconic features.
To
build in.
The closer
Otherwise, I do pretty much my partner, but I always have, and that's just because she's my type.
Hey, that's cute.
There you go.
Yeah.
I do a thing with naming characters where if I'm going to play a really long RPG and they let me name the character, I get my mom to name them, and it makes it so much more fun. Like, genuinely do this. It's so funny. So I remember one Christmas I got Persona 5 and I was like booting it up in front of her, and this is the first time I ever did it, and I was like, what should I name him? And she goes, Dagmar Jones. I don't know, come help me clean the knives. And I named him Dagmar Jones, and Joker is still so in my brain as Dagmar Jones, like Jones Coon, they called him so much. And now, like, if I'm starting a new game that let me do that, I'll text her and be like, Mom, here's the guy I'm about to be in a game, what's his name? And she'll just be like, Blue Streak Head or something. And I'm like, noted. And it's just like, it's weird because then I just think about my mom the whole time I'm playing too. It's like a nice little thing.
I am going to steal this. I'm going to make my mom name my characters now too.
That's nice.
That's awesome.
I'm not a hero. You don't make a statue about me, please. But I feel like whenever there's a character creator, ever since I was little, I'd always go for a black woman. Like, because I think at the time it was like, now look, everyone sit down. I'm not a hero. Hold the applause. But I think it was just like, oh, this seems interesting. This seems like, no, come on, you guys. I'm blushing. I'm blushing. Please.
Wow. Hero.
Kelsey's
Hero among
bowing.
men.
Wow, I've never seen this type of servitude. No, it was like more interesting. I'm like, oh, I'm going to put a protagonist in this game that I feel like I rarely see in games. And now I can't play a damn game without a black woman. No, don't take that out of context.
Isn't that crazy? UFO 50's 50 for 50?
Yeah, it's pretty wild, right? Tom Blackburn writes in and says, what's the most significant piece of feedback you've ever gotten professionally?
I always think about when I was interning at Game Informer and you taught me, after giving notes on an edit, to cut on the laugh, on the punchline. Even if there's something right after that's like pretty funny, it's just better for the tempo of the video to have it just you move on to the next thing when that clip peaks.
Huh.
And that has rung so true so consistently. It's like such a great rule of editing. It really, you want to hang on to everything you like a little bit, but it's just better if you go out on the peak.
Yeah,
advice.
and it's tough. Like
a second statue for Ben here, just nailing it today.
Yeah, but when you make my statue, make it a black woman.
Wow.
Ben Hansen as the title at the bottom.
That's interesting, Leo, because that just came up with Kyle editing something. And it's weird that still my note that I thought, like, I didn't know it was something I've repeated was like, yeah, cut after the funny thing happens. But what's really tough is like when it's something that is a little more educational or informative and something like really fun happens. And then there's a chunk right after it that's like on the downswell from the fun thing, but it's like, oh, but it's really interesting. It's like, it's still worth it to trim out the interesting thing just to keep that momentum going a little bit.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Kind of on the writing side, I got taught once more on the journalistic writing is like opt for a period more than a comma if you can. And not that don't use commas, but more times than not, it's easier to read things if they're short sentences strung together than commas extending sentences. And it really changed how I wrote. Like, you'd think that wouldn't be a big change, but our brains don't read things the way that we talk. And a lot of people write how they talk. So then when someone goes to read your work, it'll be very, I'm chucking my sister under the bus, but she'll be like, can you review my paper for me? And I'll read it. And she has to say out loud what the sentence intended to say. And once I hear her say it with cadence, it makes sense. But when you read it, it's so clunky and stuff. And more times than not, if you just chop that sentence in half and make it 2 sentences, it makes everything 1,000 times more clear.
Yeah. I remember writing advice from Game Informer. I didn't do much writing, but I think it was Kyle or somebody was yelling at Kyle to do this. I forget, but I think it was Kyle's suggestion of like 90% of the time you don't need the word that. Like you use it in your writing all the time, and just it's always a good test of going back and looking at your writing and be like, oh, this is completely superfluous. Why would I ever need that word here? It's just you're trying to overwrite it, and it's totally functional without it.
I heard that from Joe Juba. He might have been the champion of that.
That's right. That's right.
I'm a big M- abuser.
It's handy.
I do love a little M dash.
Yeah,
just a dash of it.
Where should be periods probably. I think it's one better than a comma, but I overuse it.
M dash is for when you're feeling a little spicy. It'll be like, but what they did know,
I'm always
M-dash
spicy.
is it was just about to begin. That's like when M dash shines.
Yeah, end a chapter that way. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you ever worry that you're gonna forget how to write, Jeffem? You used to write so much every damn day, and now you struggle to fill out
I
an
can't
envelope.
even write my name. I don't. How many F's are in there?
What does
I
the
can't
M
remember.
stand for? You
Yeah.
forgot.
You don't worry about it?
No.
Do you have anything interesting to say?
Even right now, I can tell he's a good writer because he's so succinct. Just like knows what he means and
Just
he's
I
communicating
put
it
a
well.
period on the end of that, and that was that.
I don't need any more words to understand him there.
Saying that a lot, but otherwise good.
I don't even remember the exact phrasing, but it boiled down to like just do things more often. Like you see a problem, you don't necessarily know the solution yet. Like start trying stuff, because the longer you wait around, like looking to find the perfect answer or trying to get the correct solution from someone, like that's all just wasted time, and there's a huge chance that whoever you're asking doesn't, they might not know any better than you. And I think this is situational, obviously, but it was really good for me when I was just like, with the store, where I'm like, there's not like the expert video game store runner almighty that knows so much more than me. There are certainly people who have, strengths in other places that I lack, and vice versa and stuff. But like, there's not like, I don't need to get the ultimate authority on a decision I'm making. I can just try it and do it. And that's made a huge difference for me.
I like that.
What type of stuff would that be? Of just, I don't know. I'm trying to wrap my mind around.
I'm trying to remember what it came up in relation to. It was something I was at a convention when this came up. So it was something to do with like a way of setting the booth up, or, something like that. Like maybe how to control the flow of traffic through the booth or something along those lines. But it's just, sure. Could someone is there possibly a solution better than the one that I've come up with? Maybe. But like, if you're just sitting there letting things get bad and not putting in some sort of fix, like that's way worse than maybe having like the third place best option that you implemented. So.
I don't know if this has changed anything I do, but I think about it a lot, which is that audio on a video is more important than the video for people wanting to watch it. Like audio quality.
Oh yeah.
It's people will just not put up with something that sounds bad versus like if it sounds good and the video is weird, they have patience for it.
Yeah, especially if the audio quality is changing throughout it. Like that's the part that sucks. Like, well, this audio is rough, but this other part's good. It's like, oh, that's way worse. It's if you change the quality, people are going to scream. It's going to be nails on a chalkboard. I feel like a lot of it is just kind of like video advice. Like, oh, I just remember like the first video production job I had as an intern at this like production house, and there's like an old producer, and he just told me like the basics of editing, which is really helpful. He's like, well, you see, the thing is, the video tells you what to think and the music tells you what to feel. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's obvious, but I've never thought of it that way. And that's kind of the magic of editing, is mixing and matching those concepts in different ways. But
I remember one coworker taught me an invaluable lesson that when you're playing Go, you don't actually have to finish the entire game. You can just stop like 3/4 of the way through. Clear winner.
Jeffem's getting back into it. Watch our Chess New Show Plus for that full story. Was that it, you jerk?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's good. Justin Dale writes in and says, hey, pretty simple one here. What's the minimum ingredients for your tacos at home? For me, it's just...
number? Sorry.
Well, he says, for me, it's protein and cheese, but my wife thinks I'm crazy for thinking that just, beef and cheese can be a taco.
You need crunch. You need some kind of mouthfeel crunchy thing, whether it's lettuce or green peppers or some cabbage, something like that.
Need is a stretch. It's good. If I gave you like a hard shell taco with meat and cheese in it, you would say, yum, yum, eat 'em up.
I'd say, where's the crunch?
I'd say it's the shell.
Nah, I don't need to be hard taco shells, to be honest.
I think I'm with you, but for a slightly different reason, and that's that meat and cheese and a tortilla is a quesadilla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've just folded it into like half a quesadilla or whatever, but like that's just a quesadilla.
Right.
So is everyone in the camp that 2 ingredients here is not enough for a taco?
I don't think you need much more than that. You can just have 3 as a taco.
Taco simple.
Even a sauce, like you meat, cheese, and like a salsa or something.
True.
Or
a little crunch in the salsa. Okay, that'll get by.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, just meat and cheese is a little like, what are we doing here?
Wow.
You start to bring that to your mouth, and then you pull it away from yourself, and you stare at it, and you're like, what is this?
What am I?
Who am I even?
Yeah.
But what if you didn't eat cheese? Could you eat like a beef and lettuce taco?
That's more a taco than beef and cheese to me.
That is more a taco.
I don't know if I could explain why.
Yeah.
But I don't need to. And it's not my job to explain it.
Okay, all right, Leah, we're not going to make you freaking explain it. Relax.
No, make him explain.
Hey, come on.
Well, I think it stops it from being quesadilla, which...
Yeah. Is it just, it needs to not be a quesadilla no matter how many ingredients it is?
Hey, but it's just meat in a tortilla. What is that?
That's a good time.
It's a monstrosity.
It's a good Tuesday night. Chris Pelly writes in and says, what games can you play right now, but you're intentionally holding off on? I didn't really like the first Star Wars Outlaws Force Stealth mission, so I'm probably going to give it a month plus to wait for patches and tweaks. I think they did tweak that first stealth mission, but yeah. So there we go. What's the game you can play right now, but you're holding off on?
Night in the Woods, because I play it every October.
Oh, interesting. So you're waiting for the calendar to roll around.
And I didn't do it last year. It's the first time in like 5 years straight I didn't do it, and I felt it. I was like, oh, I need it, please.
What last time you played through that, what do you think was standing out to you?
That was the first time I got the platinum, actually, was the last time I completely played it through. Because that platinum's tricky. You have to replay it a lot of different times because you can hang out with different people on different days. There's like a trophy for hang out with Greg and all the events, hang out with B and like all this kind of stuff. And I never played it to get the platinum. And then that playthrough, I needed something to incentivize myself. So I was like, okay, I never saw all of B's cutscenes, so this will be my final playthrough in a while to do that. So that's kind of forced me to do it. And that game, I love that game so much. The game makes me cry.
Does Nintendo have a patent on that though?
God, I hope not. They probably do something in there that Nintendo has a patent on, but they've left them alone.
I've been putting off playing Frostpunk 2. I've had a code for a little bit. Similar crying reasons. It's like
too emotional.
It's hard to decide to play such a bummer. As much as I like the first one, it's like this is
send the children to their death.
Yeah, you decide to eat children or starve. Is that game's vibe?
Yeah. Yes, I'm rarely in the mood for that these days.
Yeah.
You're getting old, dude. It's soft in your old age.
Getting soft.
Mine is Astro Bot, and it's like fully intend to play it, and it's just because we keep getting these piddly little shipments to the store of like 10 or 12, and people want them, so I keep just letting, rather than taking my copy home, I just keep selling them to other people, and I will eventually get a copy for myself.
Your real Giving Tree situation over there.
Yeah, it's super giving in my business where I charge money
for money.
This.
That was the Giving Tree.
Most teachers won't put the Giving Tree in their classroom because it's considered one of the worst morals in a story ever. It's let people abuse you until you have nothing left. Is the moral of that story.
Yeah,
it's
but
awful.
the art's pretty good, so.
I guess.
Brian Quinones, sorry for butchering your last name, says, hey, what game makes the best cosmetics/skins in your opinion? Paid or otherwise?
It's the finals, baby.
It's funny because Brian also says, yeah, it's the finals for me. So, what is it about the finals that just wows you on that front?
It makes me retroactively like, what was I doing in all those other shooters where you're just collecting the full piece at once, or in Siege, like the body and the head, where it's like, I don't know, you can grind to get something occasionally cool, mostly intentionally stupid, getting a Rick, getting a Morty if you're lucky.
Wow.
But in the finals, it's like there's so many pieces of hands, upper body, lower body, feet, upper back, lower back, headgear, face wear. There's so many pieces to get and earn and not to pay for. And then you get full sets at once that you can mix and match and make your own outfits in mostly a cohesive style. They've added some stupid stuff that people love to run that makes it look really stupid. There's like an anime skin that makes you cell shaded that doesn't look as good as it needs to. But it's not just the variety and the making your own outfits and stuff, but the attention to detail. The guns that print. I have a sniper rifle that when I get a kill, it prints a Polaroid of the person that I've killed. And I press the inspect and I hold up the gun and I look at the Polaroid of their little guy in their little outfit.
That's good.
And there's a billion things like that. They just added a koi fish gun skin for a couple guns. And it's the barrel of your gun is transparent and full of water, and you can see little fish swimming around. And when you reload, it just like spews fish out of the side of it in this pretty realistic looking shooter.
Yeah,
like in a very beautiful game, having this stuff rendered beautifully it's really, I don't have anything to compare it to.
And what's the idea? There was that new map that was in that stream recently, where it's like Japan or something.
That was last season. It was Kyoto 1568. They went back 500 years. Right. But the new season is coming this Thursday. I'm really excited for it. The new map is very Mirror's Edge looking, very futuristic sheen.
Oh.
I'm excited for season 4 in general. They did their preview event recently at TwitchCon, and it's like they're calling it the finals season 4, the theme is basically the finals. Like they're leaning into it as a game show. You're picking a sponsor to sponsor you from these 3 in-world companies. They kept going to ad breaks in the panel where they're just doing interviews and stuff. It's like, we got to go to commercial. Stay tuned. Right with that. Be right back. And it was in-world commercials for these sponsors.
Cool.
It was really cool. And it's cool because you pick a sponsor and you can't pick the other ones. Like you are picking one and getting rewards specific to it, and you are locked in, which is a bold thing to do.
It's kind of like Splatoon's, like, you know, cats, dogs, or birds. How you just pick one. You got to go through the whole thing.
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool that they're touching on a level that looks like Mirror's Edge. And, you know, Alex Van Aken brought it up in that first Deepest Dive episode. But, you know, I do think some of the leads for the finals worked on Mirror's Edge, so it's cool that they're kind of going back to their own roots there.
Yeah, leaning into it for sure. And great parkour in that game.
Great parkour, ladies and gentlemen.
I like that it's only on season 4. That feels nice and paced and slow. Like Overwatch 2 is on season like 30 something, I want to say. I don't even know. It's just like, it's gross. Too fast. Slow down.
Furious. Canadian writes in and says, "Hey, MinnMax parents."
Your voice sounded so interesting. Sorry.
Yeah, it was disgusting and gross. But Canadian says, "Hey, MinnMax parents, as someone expecting their first in February of 2025, congratulations. What sort of items?" By the way, real quick, I didn't include the question because it was pandering. But a mom wrote in talking about how her baby in the womb has listened to so much of the MinnMax show, and that's a weird idea. But that's like the Beethoven that the baby's listening to. Anyways, but Canadian says, "What sort of items do you wish you put on your registry that were lifesavers after your kids were born?" Jeff, you're in baby mode right now.
Well, that's a different question than the one that you posed to us in Slack.
No, just what's the best thing to put on a registry?
It was, not what you regret not putting on that you didn't put on and you wish you had put on.
It's the same question, dude.
Okay.
Again,
you should put on a car seat.
Car seat.
You should put on a baby stroller. Those are the big ones because those cost a lot of money. One of the chairs, the bouncy chairs that they sit in and they kind of bounce in.
Okay.
It's good to be able to put the baby down.
My advice, don't put, and if you're like giving gifts to people, if you're on the other side of this fence, don't get stuffed animals. Don't get plastic toys. They are already drowning. I feel like any baby born is going to be surrounded just by that fact of being born by enough toys. They're doing fine. I feel like we just got so many stuffed animals, and it's like, this kid isn't going to care about a stuffed animal for another 3 to 4 years. No. And they just keep coming. And it was very sweet from all of our friends, but when they left, my wife and I looked at each other like, what the hell are we going to do with this stupid elephant? We've already got 30 of these things upstairs. And just, if you're ever in doubt, get something that's actually going to be helpful. Just get diapers and wipes. Just load them full of diapers and wipes, different sizes. Just get them ready to go. Like, don't overthink it. Just get the basics they need.
Diapers, I'd be, I'm not being very thoughtful.
No, it is the most thoughtful thing. Don't get some crap that maybe they'll use sometimes if they want to chew on this from a certain angle. It's like, no, get the thing you're flying through and you constantly need to buy more of. Please.
I just need cash at that point. It's like.
Well, that's going to go right to the parents' drug addiction, so you can't do that. Just go for.
Right? Yeah. What are we going to do with all these elephants? Oh, right, smuggle heroin.
Michael Billard says, "Hey, not sure if you still do these. Of course, we still do these, Michael. But missed joke opportunity when Ben asked Leo about how this whole thing operates. Leo could have faked not understanding the question because he was busy playing Peglin, as Jacob likes to do in some meetings." There you go.
Oh.
There you go. We asked for.
What did I say for that one? I just said, I think.
Yeah, you just kind of grunted like a Michael Jackson
sound.
Yeah,
there were a lot of different directions I could have gone in hindsight.
But we appreciate the missed joke opportunity that's not just a pun that we missed. This is a creative idea. We'll take those.
Good punch up.
Tan says, please rank these video game protagonist names from worst to best. Oh, these are some classic boys. We got Jet Brody from Fracture. We got Deacon St. John from Days Gone. From Star Ocean 4, you know him, you love him. Kelsey has fan art of him. Edge Maverick is this fella's name.
Edge. So good.
Infamous Second Son's protagonist. Do we all remember this guy? Troy Baker? Was it?
No.
No, Cole was...
No, I was thinking of Cole. Yeah. Whatever, for the first one.
This is Delson Rowe
What was that?
Delson Rowe.
That's a great one.
And then from Jedi Fallen Order, of course, our boy Cal Kestis, or Carl, as Jeff likes to call him.
Yeah, Carl the Jedi.
Is anything topping Edge Maverick?
Cal Kestis
That
really
one
rolls off
is
the
like
tongue
so
to me.
bad it's good. I feel like
Oh, so Edge Maverick
that
is,
one comes back around.
okay.
I like that one.
Okay,
But
great.
wait, what was the first one again? It was also
Jet
pretty
Brody.
Jet Brody.
Jet Brody.
Now, is that so bad it's good as well?
No.
No,
Oh, okay.
that's so bad it's still bad.
Okay, Delson Rowe. How bad is that?
That's really
It's-
bad.
That's like a Midwestern mom naming, trying to do a unique name.
Yes.
That's like Madison
Delson.
with 4 Y's or whatever.
Right, and not where you think. Deacon St. John from Days Gone, our dear boy. Love his Sackboy
I don't love
parents.
that he rhymes with his game name. You know?
Well, I remember
Something weird there.
when we did the rapid fire for Days Gone, Cork's joke was, I forget how he phrased it. It was clever the way he phrased it, but it was basically like Deacon St. John. So basically he used that old porn name cliche if you combine the street you grew up on with the name of your pet. And so he
Yeah.
asked him if that was how they named Deacon St. John, and John Garvin said like, oh, totally, something like that. And then I remember like IGN in their preview of Days Gone, they cited that like, oh, fun fact, that was the street and the pet of the creative director. It's like, no, not quite. It was a joke.
Oh, no.
That one feels like a good band name to me.
Yeah, God, I'd love to see Deacon belt it out. Okay, so from worst to best, is the worst Cal Kestis, then Delson Rowe, then
I like Cal Kestis.
I'm sorry, Cal is now right below Edge Maverick. From best to worst, it's Edge Maverick, Cal Kestis, Deacon St. John, Jet Brody, Delson Rowe. Do we have any
live with
upper crust bubblers here to throw in? Okay, great. Let's see. A live girl, just the way we like them, says, hey, everyone, in the past, Leo has spoken about using Pomodoro technique. Am I pronouncing that correctly? To help with productivity. Do the rest of y'all have any productivity tips / tricks? And Leo, do you still use Pomodoro timer?
Every day.
What's
Every
that?
day.
25 minutes working, 5-minute break, 25, 5, 25, 5, 25, 15. And which usually becomes more than that for me. It's like 2 hours of solid work, take a break, do some other chores, whatever, come back, 2 hours of solid work later. It's super. I just use an online timer. It's just structures my day in a way I need, being self-employed and self-motivated and stuff.
Yeah,
Nice.
that is nice. Yeah, I feel like a really stupid simpleton, but I feel like it works so well. I just have a Google Doc that's in my bookmark that's just called To Do. And at the top, I have everything that's on my quote unquote calendar, which I don't use. It just says, hey, Tuesday at this time, this thing's happening. And so if there's ever anything new, I put that up there. And then the rest is just a scattershot, kind of ranked in importance of things to get to. And then if I'm ever like, oh, I got to remember to do that thing, I'll just go type it on that Google Doc. And then whenever I have a free second, I go look at that Google Doc and say, oh yeah, I got to get to this, got to get to this, got to get to this. And then I think it's working out okay. It seems like a nice, clean way and easy. You don't have to have some stupid
I love a
separate
good
app.
chaos Google Doc. What you're describing does not sound very organized, but I also make, although mine's spread out between Google Docs and Notes, and
See, that's where that's your
it's not
downfall.
good.
Too chaotic. Yeah.
I will say, like, sticking to Google Calendar, like starting to use, or whatever calendar app, but that has been a huge difference maker in my life. Is just like making sure that the second I hear about something, I like make an event for it on my calendar, even if it's like need to pick up something from the tailor or whatever. I'll just pick a time. I'll be like, she said it's ready Tuesday. Okay, like Tuesday at 2. That's when I'm doing it.
Just get it on there. Yeah, I just don't want to have more apps and crap to open, which is why I don't want to deal with the calendar. And like if I don't use MinnMax's calendar that much, I'm like, I just want to keep it as simple as possible. Just a little bookmark tab. I don't want to give people some other destination of a thing to open up. But
Is there a calendar app? This is $1 billion idea.
yeah.
Is there a calendar app that we could all use that has everything in it, and if you can say, I'm going to pair with this person and find the gaps we both have in our schedule when we're trying to schedule this thing?
I think there's an app for that with like friend groups. I forget what the name of it is, but essentially you like share your Google Calendar and then it says you're all free on Thursday at blank.
That's great.
Oh, that's
that
cool.
uses your Google Calendar. That's excellent.
Yeah. Have fun now. Have fun now.
I use Trello, and it's like completely fixed my brain for stressing out about what I have to do. I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, but it has these little slots. Another lawyer told me about this one, and I've used it for like 3 years now. And it's like you can create whatever captions you want for the slots. And so I have client MIA. So if they just ghosted me, I don't know where they went. It's like they go over there because I've already reached out to them 3 times and they haven't responded, right? So I don't want to get rid of all the notes I've written in the item about what we've talked about, but I also don't want to look at it anymore. So I chuck them over there. And then I have waiting on client response, waiting on coworker response, to do, and then completed, or waiting on registry, because sometimes I have to do filings and the registry takes a week to come back, to do, and then completed. So everything that I can't control because someone else is working on it for me, or the registry is taking a while, isn't on my plate, so I don't have to think about it. And the only things I have to look at every morning is I just look and they'll be like, just these little blocks over here. That's not so bad. And then I look at that and just write down what I'm actually going to do today, like physically. And that really calms me down for some reason, because it's like, okay, I could do every single thing today, but I'm just going to do blank, 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 and blank. And then I actually do all those things instead of panic and think about how much I have to work on today and just get all stressed about it.
Yeah.
How is Trello free version?
It's great.
I used Microsoft To Do forever. Just the first To Do app I ever found 4 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's the free version's great. You can have it private so no one can see inside of it. And it's also security approved for lawyers. So my entire firm switched over to Trello because my boss saw me using it and was like, that's way better than what we do. Wow. So now our entire firm works through Trello.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have one more thing on this, and you just simply can't ask a question like this unless you want me to fill a ton of time talking about it. It's my passion. I've been doing lately, having something in my to-do list for wanting to write every day, not always feeling motivated, noticing I make all these deals with myself of I'll write later and do this fun thing now. Going like, I'll have this thing in my to-do list, which is write every day or journal in here about why you're not going to write. And that's like, well, I can always do that. That seems a lot easier. I'll do that. And through the process of writing about it, it's like, here's what I'm afraid of. Here's what I'm worried about. Here's what I think I need to do. And just doing that process makes it less intimidating and makes it a lot easier to then go, okay, I do feel ready to write now. So having that, like, I have to do at least this little thing, and that thing being a gateway into this thing that's hard to motivate myself to do, that's been a big game changer the last few weeks.
That's good.
That's good. Joe writes in and says, hey, CLCs, with the upcoming anniversary meetup in Asheville, North Carolina, October 5th, Saturday, will you be bringing Bob Buell's Queen's Blood cards for an in-real-life game? I just packed them. Yeah. So from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Bob Buell made us as Queen's Blood cards. It seems like it's going to be hard to do it in real life. We have to make a little grid and stuff, but we'll draw it out in sand. I don't really know exactly how it's going to work, but perhaps an easier way for Hansen and Janet Garcia to settle their differences rather than a race, which Janet would obviously win. Is this an ult from Janet because she's scared of losing that race? Because I think that's what's going on here. We got to remember to work that into the schedule of this is when we drive to a high school and find their football field for Janet and Ben to race across.
Is that the length you guys are doing a football field?
Yep.
Are you training?
No, however,
he is training and he's saying no so that he seems really fast when we see him.
Yeah. Well, no, my bike is in the shop, and so I did go running last week. For the first time in a while, and I thought I was going to die afterwards, if that's any indication.
Did you keel over before football field was over?
No, I can make it a football field. It's just as I was lying in bed, I said, why do my legs hurt so much? And it was like, oh, that's right. I ran the last couple mornings. Turns out that's really different.
I did Ring Fit Adventure for like 20 minutes and I was sore. I was like, God damn it, I need to move around.
It's actually, people don't talk about it. Ring Fit Adventure is the leading cause of death.
Oh my God.
Yeah, on several continents.
You can get so sore you die.
Yeah.
No, I just really skipped over all the bright red disclaimers and jumped right into the workout fun.
That's why Nintendo has a patent on death.
Death on heart attacks.
Yeah. I was talking to Leo a little bit about it, but we should try and think of like the things that we should do in person that we can't do normally. You know, with the Asheville meetup, it's like, oh, we're going to be making a travelogue of that entire trip, but like, what are fun things that we could do that we should definitely take this opportunity to do that we couldn't do at any other time? But trying to find out exactly what that means is where I'm lost. But surely there are some things that's like we can only do in person, like playing, tabletop games together, I suppose, is an easy example. But I'm trying to think of other ones that we should not miss out on.
I have that drinking board game I'm going to bring that like people don't have to drink alcohol if they don't want either. They could just like drink their drinking, but it's so fun. My friends and I play it every weekend. We call it the wizard game, and now I can't remember what it's actually called. I've talked about it on Bonus Pod a lot before. It's so fun.
All right, awesome.
Sweet.
Let's see. Travis and Fargo writes in and says, "Hey, how often do you wash your hats?"
Is this the laundry question?
This is the legendary laundry question.
I was wondering.
I tried to wash one of my hats the other day, and I have not figured out what the optimal way to do that is. I did like I usually try to just wash it in the sink because I know it's not really like if you throw them in the wash, I don't know. They're not really built for that.
Did they get destroyed?
I think so.
I put my hats in the wash and they're fine. We take off the little like clip part beforehand, which helps.
Clip part?
On a ball cap?
Yeah.
What's the clip part?
Oh, like
There's
a
a metal
snap?
part that snaps, and you slide it off.
Oh,
I didn't know you could slide those
I didn't know
suckers
that came
off.
off either.
Probably depends on the hat, but the ones we got, you can do it. And I do it every couple months, which I'm scared to say because this could be another towel situation where the community says you're supposed to wash it twice between every use.
I mean,
I'll come out and say never wash my hats.
yeah, like
Ever once.
my one baseball hat, if I did wash it, it was over 8 years ago. Like, it just not.
Well, how often do you guys wear your hats?
I wear beanies a lot more than baseball caps, and
Those are easy to
my
wash. You
beanies.
can just chuck those.
I
in the
know, but
wash.
I'm not doing it. I should be washing those more. Ooh. Anyways, don't borrow my hats. I guess
You're fine. Oh, you're fine. Jeffem, you wear a lot of backwards baseball caps?
I can see it.
Yeah,
can see
like
it.
the cool kids.
Yeah.
I have seen, I think my parents own like a plastic guillotine kind of, or like Iron Maiden thing that you put your hat in to hold its shape. I don't know if that's
As you wash
a better
it?
option. Yeah, as you wash it for washing.
Oh, weird.
But I don't know.
Well, I think-
Yeah.
I don't wash my hat.
If someone can give me I guess I'm surprised I'm the only one that washes my hats, but I'm never satisfied with how they, like, when I wash it in the sink, it just dries and I still feel like I'm seeing, I never feel like I got it fully clean.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's better than it used to be just by virtue of like getting it wet and rubbing some soap on it, but like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
For some reason, the image of you washing your hat in a sink is very funny to me.
Like a washboard.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm envisioning, but it just looks cool.
Something about washing things in sinks, I agree, never feels clean. Like, I wash my swimsuits in the sink because I feel like, I don't know, something about putting a swimsuit in the washing machine, even though they're meant for water, might ruin it somehow. Maybe it's because my mom always washed them in the
weird
sink.
laundry ideas, because I definitely, I feel like I have superstitions about certain things.
Yeah,
in laundry
why?
Too. Like, there's
I've
just
never
certain
thought
things you're
about
like,
it,
no,
but-
that I'm never gonna look this up, but that doesn't go in there for reasons.
Yeah, once I found out that you can mix colors and whites, all bets were
my
off.
God.
I'm totally with you. Now it's
I don't
shocking if something's
separate.
unexpected. Like, sometimes I'll like throw my wife's laundry in the dryer. She's like, "What did you do, you idiot?" I'm like, I didn't know there's some things you can't dry. That's still, if that's something I have to buy, I don't want to buy it, is my policy. All right, what do y'all like for question of the week?
If I sign up for Trello, as I am about to,
Oh.
and it changes my life, then that will of course have been the question of the week.
Okay.
But too soon to say.
Best feedback professionally, the minimum ingredients for a taco. A lot of contenders here.
Taco's good, but I always try to avoid, like, I feel like my answer, I'm always most amused by the ones that are like hypotheticals about food or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to be a broken record about that.
I get it. Video game names, they're right there.
Oh, Bob Buell saying, do the Dagmar Jones question.
Yeah, the character names. Yeah. Character design.
It's actually spelled Dagmire, Bob.
Respect Dagmar,
Close.
Bob.
Close.
Sure.
That's clearly Dagmire.
Jones Goon.
Okay, right.
This one's hard for some reason.
I don't know why this one's hard too.
I like
one
the
is
character
hard.
creator one that got us to
Okay.
Dagmire Jones.
Yep. All right. Sergeant Peppa,
Yeah.
congratulations. You just won question of the week and you won the Persona 4 Golden Vinyl
And it's a
soundtrack.
Persona thing.
How appropriate.
All
Fantastic.
comes together.
Thanks for your support, Sergeant Pepper. Now it's time for something that we prefer to call Get a Load of This. Hey, get a load of this, y'all. I'm going to say a sentence. You tell me something fun about this sentence. It's a little game I like to play. Go hang a salami. I'm a lasagna hog.
Is that one of those? It's the same forwards.
It's a
and
palindrome
backwards?
sentence.
What?
Yeah.
That's a palindrome?
Go hang a salami. I'm a lasagna hog. Isn't that a good one? It's on Seth Meyers not too long ago. Like the classic is like a man, a plan, a canal, Panama. I was like, hey, impressive palindrome sentence, but I like go hang a salami. I'm a lasagna hog a little more than that.
Yeah,
bigger,
salami and
weirder.
lasagna.
Sounds a little,
in opposition.
a little naughty and sexual.
Oh,
also.
please. Someone's been playing too much
I
Jackbox
say that
Money
it sounds like
Pack.
a good new insult we can use. You know, like instead of saying "f off," you go hang a salami, dude.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
get
Like,
out of here.
the
You
next
think
time,
you're a lasagna hog?
next time Jeff tries to bring
I'm
up
a
Go
lasagna hog.
on a podcast.
Get a load of this. This is a somber one. Turns out Skyrim grandma Shirley Curry is hanging up her gauntlets.
Oh, they're gonna say
On
she
Earth?
died.
Yeah,
No.
what the heck?
You can't set us up like that.
Instead, she says she's bored to death with content creation. And she said
Fair.
she put up a video announcing it where she talked about an upcoming eye surgery that she's gonna have for like 5 minutes, and then she said that basically she like walks past her computer room every day and tells herself, I gotta go in and make a video. And she said she's come to the realization that it's not fun for her and she doesn't want to do it anymore. And so she's going to stop making gameplay videos.
Wow.
Unless Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, then maybe all bets are off. But
Wow.
it was a surprisingly nice kind of, I mean, ask for wisdom from your 88-year-old grandma about content creation and doing stuff when it's not fun anymore. And you'll get a good answer. So
Love it.
Respect.
Get a load of this. I know you guys love when I bring baseball ones in, so I'm giving you two, which is that I'm actually watching right now. It is possible that within the next 20 minutes or so, the Chicago White Sox are going to break the record for most losses in a season of all time. Well, of all time of the modern era, I guess. We don't really count like the weird 1910s or whatever, but yeah, there's still like 5 or 6 games left in the season, and they would need to win all of them in order to not break this record. So history being made this year. And then also the Oakland Athletics are going to be playing their very last game in Oakland this week, which is another 2 sad baseball facts, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Where are they going to? They changing the team
news.
name and everything?
So in theory, they're going to Vegas. It's a long story that basically amounts to the owner sucks. But they're going to Vegas, except that there have been no plans approved to build anything in Vegas yet. So they're playing in Sacramento next year.
Okay, interesting. Weird.
Get a load of this.
Damn it.
Sorry, you lost out.
Sorry, folks. Get a load of this one. Cartoon Network posted a little tease that they're doing a 10-year anniversary special for Over the Garden Wall by Aardman Animation,
Whoa.
which looks really cool. Coming November 3rd. Excited for that. And my friend Samir said Over the Garden Wallace, and then my friend Randy said Over the Grommet Wallace.
Perfect.
That's comedy.
Good friends, Leo.
Take notes, y'all.
Get a load of this. I'll post it in our little chat so you guys can see it too, because it looks sick. I love really unique game merch, and I only played Outer Wilds this year, but Lost in Cult is making this book, like, or I don't even know what you call it, just like a collection of cool stuff to do with Outer Wilds, and it has this paper craft spaceship replica, and it's like you fold it yourself at home, and just the way this thing looks, maybe it's the render they have on Lost in Cult. I want this thing so bad. It looks so rad. I just love how it looks like it's from a video game, but it exists on our tangible plane.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there's a bunch of other cool stuff too, like not sponsored by Lost in Cult, by the way. I just think they make cool stuff. A bunch of postcards and stuff. I don't know. I just love physical media like that. And I love when it's not just a figurine. Like, it's a paper craft. Like, oh, that's so cool.
But disclosure, our friend Blake Hester does work there. So we
does.
do have a vested interest in it succeeding.
Interesting.
Yes.
And also that's who's publishing Jacob's book, right?
Yeah. All right. I'll trim this part out of the podcast. We can't let this air. Hey, get a load of
If
this.
it's going to die, we should let it die.
Yeah. Get a load of this from the Discord community. There's a whole channel where people share fun facts every second of every day. It's not that often, but it's always good stuff. But Hazard posted this, and I missed this completely. But Dragon Ball Daima, like the new Dragon Ball series, the last one that Akira Toriyama was involved with then before his passing. And this is where it seems like a lot of the protagonists for Dragon Ball get turned back into kids again, which sounds great and fun and silly. But November 10th through 11th, they're airing the first 3 episodes in theaters. And I saw so many of the other Dragon Ball movies in theaters, like the Dragon Ball Super run, and they were so fun to see in theaters with that crowd. And like, especially after Toriyama's passing, I feel like this is going to be a really awesome, magical experience of just like, let's watch the final Toriyama Dragon Ball show, the first 3 episodes together. So that'll be a fun one to see in theaters there. But hey, that is it for this episode of the MinnMax Show. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, listening, sharing, all that fun stuff. We greatly appreciate it. Again, if you want to help support independent games media directly, keep this show rolling directly, go to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. Jump in at that $5 tier. You unlock bonus pod each and every week. Yeah, this week it was Leo and I diving deep on all things business with MinnMax. We took a bunch of questions from the community. So if you want an update on the MinnMax studio, the impact of rapid fire on our YouTube channel, getting into Patreon numbers, YouTube numbers, analytics, money. I mean, if you're the type of person who wants to know MinnMax's bank account, are you building up for something with that money, or do you try to keep it drained? What's the strategy? This is the conversation for you. If I was on the other side of the fence, I would be fascinated by this type of media management conversation. So I hope you all enjoy it. It's in that bonus pod feed. Also in the bonus pod feed, we have, the deepest dive on Zelda, which is coming up next week. But then also we have an interview that went up this week with Eric Kozlowski and Max Spielberg, talking about their new game, Linked Banner of the Spark. This was revealed during Keighley's Gamescom opening night live. And Max Spielberg is the son of Steven Spielberg. And so we talked about his entire journey through the game industry of like going to DreamWorks Interactive when he was a kid, being involved with Jurassic Park Trespasser, all that Medal of Honor back in the day. And then like he's had an amazing journey through the game industry of working, at EA for a long time, and then at Ubisoft on Assassin's Creed Unity, and then on the Battlefield franchise, and on some new IP at EA that was canceled. And so he had never done a podcast before. So it's fun to unpack both their careers, but Max Spielberg, because he's never talked about it, and it's a fascinating thing.
I'm surprised he's never been on a podcast before.
Yeah, it's weird. And he does talk about his dad every once in a while. He talks about his dad playing Wii Sports with Miyamoto. It's like, oh my God, what a weird thing to see as a kid.
It's like the thing people would lie about. My dad played Wii Sports with Miyamoto.
Right. By the way, my dad is Steven Spielberg. So hope you all enjoy that interview. It's a fun one. New show Overflow, fashion montage. We revived it. And so if you want to see Sarah dragging me to the Mall of America, that is live on our YouTube channel. It's a hoot, and you should all thank Sarah for her patience. But just a reminder, for the final time, if you're listening to this early, this Friday, September 27th, Kelsey and I, that Kelsey Lewin right over there, we are going to be in Portland, Oregon, and we have a community meetup at 7 p.m. Pacific at Gigantic Brewing, 5224 Southeast, 26th Avenue. There's multiple Gigantic Brewing locations, so make sure you go to the Gigantic Brewing tap room. We'll be there. You can bring friends. You don't need to be a Patreon supporter. We'd love to see you. Otherwise, next weekend, this won't stop. We're going to be in Asheville, North Carolina, at the Zillicoa Beer Company at 7 p.m. Eastern then, 7 p.m. in Asheville, North Carolina on Saturday, October 5th. It's a big outdoor brewery by a river. It seems lovely, so let's go have a big celebration. Celebrate 5 years of MinnMax here. And technically, don't be confused, this brewery is technically in a town called Woodfin, which is right next to Asheville, but it's not too far away. So it is the Zillicoa Beer Company place in Asheville. So I've gotten a lot of messages from people saying they're driving in for that or flying in for that, which is very sweet. So it should be a fun, big celebration. But I think that is it. Anybody else got something they want to plug?
On Thursday, when the final season 4 drops, I'm going to stream it on my channels. Leo Vader on YouTube, leovader.com, DOTCOM on Twitch.
Sweet. Awesome.
Good evening.
Love it. Great. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Greatly appreciate your support. We got a couple meetups coming up, and a couple in-person videos coming up as well because of those. So it should be a fun time on the horizon for all things MinnMax. And, we haven't talked about it too much yet, but we are going to be doing a big charity stream in November. It's part of the Minnesota nonprofit fundraising thing called Give to the Max. So the money's not going to us. It's just called Give to the Max, which is a fun, happy coincidence. So we'll be doing
Give to the MinnMax.
Ooh, that's what Patreon's for, my dear. But you can get ready for that big charity stream. We have a bunch of things to auction off as well coming up in November. We're overflowing with auction items, so it's going to be a good time. But that is it for this episode. Thanks for sticking around, everybody. We'll be back next week with more fun. Be good. Have fun. Let's go.